Welcome, friends, to Breakfast in the Ruins, a Michael Moorcock-flavoured podcast. In the early 80s, my obsession with Moorcock was yet to take full shape, but there were a couple of other things that were just about fully formed, some of which we've talked about in this podcast already. Sven Hassel, Target books, a good old Spectrum computer. But there were a couple of other things that we haven't previously talked about that loomed large in my 12-year-old brain. Things that collided in one incredible event that is burned into the psyche of numerous kids of my generation. Lewis Collins and the SAS came together in the cinematic masterpiece known as Who Dares Wins. And, seeing as we've been talking on and off about novelisations here and there was a novelisation of Who Dares Wins out there called The Tiptoe Boys. So, as part of our series of novelisations of beloved British media, John and I decided, for reasons I can't quite remember, to give The Tiptoe Boys a look for the first time, and celebrate the excuse it gave us to watch Who Dares Wins for the 124th time and just have a yak about it. So, iron your polo neck sweater, fire up the Capri, and join us as we take a look at The Tiptoe Boys by James Follett and bemoan the fact that Lewis Collins never did go on to dominate the world. Why are we here today, John? Well, we're back in Derry Toms. Oh, welcome back, John. Welcome back to John, everybody.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Well, we're back here doing another novelisation, sort of, because, of course, we've done a couple of Blake Seven novelisations, and, funnily enough, John, I don't know if I told you this, I might have done, but on the back of our discussions about novelisations, in combination with that and the E.C. Tubb novel that Phil and I did as an LP Bookshop special the year before last, I think, a guy got in touch with me from California, a guy called Mateo Lotas, and he's going to be on the podcast very, very soon. And it turns out that Mateo is behind a publishing company called Powys Media, and they have been publishing Space 1999 novelisations.
Yeah, I think you sent me a link.
Yeah, not only the original E.C. Tubb and Michael Butterworth and others novelisations, but also doing new ones to fill in the gaps. And they produced an enormous volume called Space 1999 Volume 1, which takes all of those novelisations from the 70s, revises them in partnership with the authors themselves who wrote them, and then created some fresh novelisations to fill in the gaps, and it essentially covers all of year one of Space 1999. They've got a volume 2 which covers year 2, and they've done a load of novelisations which are a projected season 3. So there's loads of them out there. But Mateo was very, very kind and actually sent me a copy of volume 1. And by God, it's enormous. It's fucking huge. So I'll be reading that soon and talking to Mateo very soon, which is great. But Mateo's currently in Guatemala. He's been keeping in touch while he's in Guatemala and sending me some pictures of him and his family and friends in Guatemala, which is lovely. So I look forward to talking to Mateo. But anyway, gone off piste already. We have done a couple of novelisations. We did the first Blake Seven novelisation. We did Project Avalon. And we were having a conversation, well, what should we do next? And I can't remember how we hit on the Tiptoe Boys.
I don't remember. I think you just sent me a WhatsApp probably to say, have you watched this? Are you familiar with this? And I said, that just sounds perfect.
Yeah, yeah, it really does.
I don't need much prompting.
No.
And even if I hadn't known it, I'd have thought, let me have a watch of that. And of course, the big lure, you've got Lewis Collins in there. So even if I hadn't seen it, I thought, well, I'm going to go straight in. But
yeah, so for people who don't know what we're on about, the Tiptoe Boys is the novelisation
of course, yeah,
of Who Dares Wins. Now, I've been talking about this for a couple of days to Phil, and I keep saying Where Eagles Dare, but it isn't. It's Who Dares Wins. Curse those 3-word film titles.
Yeah, they're easy to muddle up, aren't they? And when you sent me the book, and I thought, well, is the Tiptoe Boys another book? Not realising, no, that's the title. But it became Who Dares Wins at the cinema. So
yeah. So, I mean, for somebody who's never... Because the funny thing about I've done it again. The funny thing about Who Dares Wins is if you're of our generation, you know it. You're more than... 99% of people of our generation... If you say Who Dares Wins, they know exactly what you're talking about.
And I imagine most of those people wouldn't have seen it at the cinema.
No.
Or a lot of them wouldn't. They'd have seen it on ITV.
Yeah.
every couple of years. That's when I watched it, and when I watched a lot of those films, they're always on repeat. I don't remember it. I'd have been too young to go and see it at the cinema anyway.
Apparently, the first time it was broadcast on TV was around Christmas. And I think, according to, I can't remember if it was Ewan Lloyd or Ian Sharp, but according to them, it was the second highest audience score for the Christmas programming that year, and it got 15 million viewers.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, in the early 80s or mid 80s, whenever it was. So there's a couple of things we need to try and describe to, first of all, well, there's a couple of things we need to describe to people who don't have a fucking clue what we're talking about. Because to us, Who Dares Wins #1 is a massive part of was a massive part of the cultural zeitgeist in the early 80s and has retained a ridiculous level of fondness and nostalgia, despite the fact that on many levels, it's a bit fascist. It's a bit of a fash propaganda movie.
I was going to mention that. Yeah, watching it back, I must have missed that at the time.
Oh, well, you don't twig that as a kid, do you?
No, you're just looking at the action and the SAS men. But when you watch it back, you think, this is a strong piece of anti-lefty propaganda.
Well, and as a grown-up 50-something fully formed lefty, watching it again now is quite an interesting experience.
I felt personally affronted.
I feel attacked. But
I know which side I'd have been on.
The other thing is, I mean, we need to try and explain this film to people who, number one, are English, number two, out of our generation. I think we might find that Australians and Canadians and probably quite a few Americans may have seen it because apparently it was massive on HBO. For one reason or another, it never got a wide cinema release in America. We'll talk about Ewan Lloyd's idea of why that was later on when we get to it. Ewan Lloyd, of course, the great gentleman producer of British cinema, who was a protege of Albert Cubby Broccoli. I'm just going to make one request, John. Is it possible you can move your beer away from your microphone? Because every time you pour your beer, we're getting a perfect microphone recording of it.
Well, I was about to introduce it, so I'll introduce it and get out of the way.
Now is a good time.
This is F. Robinson's Old Tom Ale. Are you familiar with that one?
I've had it once. Yeah.
It is absolutely beautiful. I haven't had it in ages, and I've drunk it on draft.
Yeah.
And when I drank it on draft, I had no idea it was so strong.
Yeah.
I sat in this pub and we were going to have a steak. It was a nice pub called The Plough. And I thought I'll have a couple of drinks. And of course, by the time the steak had come, I was thinking, God, this is heavy going. It was like having 4 or 5 pints. I was leathered. And it was only later on I clocked that it was 8.5%. Absolutely beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's brewed in Stockport.
Yeah, Robinson's. I was going to say Robinson's is it's a Stockport brewer. I knew it was a Manchester area kind of brewery.
I was looking it up, and I think it's been around since the 19th century.
And my first ever experience of Robinson's brewery was when I was about 19, and a very close friend of mine, she had a pair of stepbrothers who lived in Manchester, and I went across to Manchester for one of their 21st birthdays, and we were drinking all afternoon in the pub, and we went in a Robinson's pub, and it was electric tap bitter. Do you remember that awful period in the late 80s, early 90s where hand pumps disappeared from pubs and everything was electric tap? And Robinson's was their local brewery, and I got so ill drinking that slop out of those electric tap beers. So I had a really negative opinion of Robinson's for years. Yeah. But then many, many years later, you travel again and you go places and you try things and you realise, actually, it was probably just a shit pub who took really poor care of their equipment. Yeah. Yeah.
But I can recommend this highly. It comes in a 330ml bottle, so they don't trust you to drink a pint of it. And I thought, I'll go for that, because if it been a pint and then if I drank another one, I thought I'll be leathered by the time this ends. Hopefully I'll stay under control, but it is really, really delicious.
Yeah, I'm a little bit jealous actually, because I don't have any beer today, because for one reason or another I have a ridiculous, strange gland infection, which means that on one side of my jaw I look like I'm smuggling nuts. and I've been on strong antibiotics for 3 or 4 days. So I didn't actually bring any beer up. I've just had a Lemsip, but I have got a can of Vimto. But because, you know what, I'm going to crack this up and down. Because you there are drinking an Old Tom, I feel like I've really let the side down. So I'm going to pour some Vimto. I've drunk my Lemsip, so I'm pouring my Vimto into my Lemsip mug, but there is no Lemsip in it, I should point out. So I'm going to pop some of that in there. And the only thing I have to hand that I can possibly put in it is some Polish absinthe, which has been kicking around next to my desk since we did. Oh, I think it's been there since we did Letters from Hollywood, and I've not touched it since. So, it's getting on for 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon. This is probably a colossal mistake. But if you're on the Old Tom, you know what? I feel I'm letting the side down if I don't go for it. So I am going to have absinthe and Vimto. We'll have to think of... Now, we need to think of a good name for an absinthe and Vimto, don't we?
Absintho.
What could we call it? Absintho? Absintho. That's a pretty good one. I was thinking something along the lines of Flashbang or something appropriately thematic. Yeah, but let's give that a taste. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. This actually tastes quite incredible. But of course, if you think about the taste of Vimto and introduce something vaguely aniseedy to it...
Yeah, it's a nice contrast, isn't it?
It's like I'm drinking blackcurrant and licorice sweet. I think we've struck on something here.
Yeah. They'll all be drinking it soon.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll start a craze. Get on it, people. Anyway, in terms of describing this film to people who aren't, number 1, our generation, number 2, British, number 3, Canadian, Australian or American and might have seen it on HBO, or are under 40. How would you describe this film?
Yeah, it's a tremendous action film. It's just no nonsense. You just get straight into it. And you look at those, it's got a good cast in it. It's got pretty extreme violence. It revolves around a terrorist group, left-wing terrorist group, who come up against the SAS eventually.
Yeah.
And a lot of the scenes take place in dark, smoky rooms, in clubs, in bars. It gives a good feel of the early 80s, I feel.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is it's made and it's directed by a guy who directed episodes of The Sweeney, The Professionals. We'll talk about him later. He went on to direct some other interesting things as well in the 80s. But in the 70s, he directed The Sweeney, The Professionals, and various other things for TV, for ITV and the BBC. Originally started work for the BBC. So it's got that wonderful, vivid look, filmic look that things like The Sweeney and The Professionals had, because of course they were filmed on 16mm, not TV cameras like most other TV at the time. But this director given full carte blanche to create an action film on 35mm with all of the resources that can be given to a guy to do that at the time. And yes, it's from 1982. And radical lefties are planning something, and the film starts with the murder of an informant in their ranks, which they set up, and the establishment needs to get another man on the inside. So they manufacture a reason for a apparently former SAS soldier, to convincingly turn up and join their ranks, and via that infiltration, they've got the man on the inside for when the shit hits the fan, and there's a big violent climax that very much mirrors the event of the Iranian embassy siege of 1980 in terms of visuals and looks. So you've talked about where you first saw it. I think for me, it probably was ITV. I think we probably rented it on VHS as well, when it wasn't on ITV, or we recorded it off the box and watched it a bazillion times. I don't know about you, but if I'd have gone to the cinema age 10 to see this, I'm not sure my brain could have handled it. I think my mind would have blurted all over the cinema.
When you look at that first scene that you mentioned with the assassination of the informant, where he gets a crossbow bolt down his throat. And even... I watched this, and the start of the film is superb. You've got that booming soundtrack that we'll go on to. And then within 5 minutes, someone's shot with a crossbow. He's holding up a bullhorn, and we don't know at the time. We just think he's one of the agitators. And it goes right down his throat, and the police descend on him, and there's blood coming out of his mouth. And you watch that and think, that is absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
You'd be shocked if you saw it on Game of Thrones or something like that. It is awful.
Yeah. It's violent in that wonderful way that some 70s British stuff was.
Yeah.
In that it's not stylized, it's quite matter of fact, and you've got that. The fascinating thing about that beginning, you've just mentioned it there, is it begins with a shot of the cenotaph.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the unknown soldier and the statues and that
That's
absolutely brilliant Roy Budd opening soundtrack, that theme tune with the wacka wacka guitar and the bass. It's absolutely incredible. It gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. But then it hard cuts from the cenotaph and the sacrifice of our soldiers straight to the marching middle-class lefties, with their CND and ban the bomb signs, chanting. And it's, right, at the time when I saw this as a kid, or even when I watched this in my 20s, I'm not quite picking up on the subtext.
No.
But this film, from the very start, is laying out its political position.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
Did our
amazing.
soldiers sacrifice their lives for this?
For these hippies. For these dirty hippies.
Great unwashed. But those marching scenes are really good, because I watched that and I thought, are these genuine CND marches? Because they look so realistic. They must have got a big crowd to do it, because unless they have interspersed it with real CND marches.
It's fantastic, and that's another great thing about this film is that, you know, you go into it. We'll get onto Lewis Collins in a minute, but you go into it thinking, right, this looks and feels and sounds like something that ITC would have made or Lou Grade would have made in the 70s for ITV. But it's on a much bigger scale, a much bigger canvas. Not only have you got the crowd march scene at the beginning, but you've got that massive scene in the church with the rock band where they've got
I cannot wait to get into that.
Oh, we'll get to that, don't worry. I'll tell you what then. Let's get on to why this film was made before we talk about Lewis Collins, because Lewis Collins is the other thing we need to explain to people who aren't aware of Lewis Collins and what kind of impact he had on us. But first of all, so Ewan Lloyd, the producer of this, the great gentleman producer, the guy behind The Wild Geese, the guy behind The Sea Wolves, him and his wife are in London. The Iranian embassy siege has been going on for 6 days. They just so happen to walk down to stand with some of the crowd and the TV cameras looking at the Iranian embassy. Just at that moment, the body of the hostage gets thrown from the balcony. And at that point, the SAS are sent into action. So they watch the subsequent SAS raid, which, of course, was broadcast live on television. And I can't honestly remember whether I was watching that live on television or what.
That's what I was thinking, because we didn't have rolling news in those days.
No, but it was a bank holiday Monday.
Right. I wondered, because I was so familiar with it, and of course it went on for a number of days.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine, I wonder if I was going to school, coming back, watching it, going out, coming back, and then you tune in. But it's not like now where you just put it on and you can watch it for 4 hours.
That's
You'll get a news bulletin 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
Yeah. If this had been modern, there'd have been rolling news of this.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when 9/11 happened, when lots and lots of different things happened. You get up in the morning, you turn the TV on, and you end up just sat there all day, texting your mates, just like aghast, watching all of this stuff going on. But in this case, UK 3 TV channels. Channel 4 hadn't even been launched yet. BBC 2 was still part-time. So you've got 2 main channels, and this happens in the afternoon or tea time of a bank holiday Monday in 1980. And I can still vividly see all of those images in my mind's eye from watching it on the box.
I've seen it over and over again. And of course, it's repeated. It's one of the big events in British television.
Yeah. So you've got this imagery of the whitewashed, large, probably Georgian, 3-story London house with some iconic scenes. The guy escaping out across the balcony, the SAS men, all in black, hooded, roping down the outside into the balconies, throwing flashbang grenades in, going in with the weapons, gunfire, bang, 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 6 minutes, boom, done, all over.
Yeah.
all over. And then the actual fallout from that, in terms of the media and recognition of the SAS and who they were and everything else, this is one of those things that spills out from that, because Ewan Lloyd and his wife saw this from the crowd. They saw the climax from the crowd. And then immediately afterwards, within an hour, he'd registered the title of the film, Who Dares Wins. He'd commissioned a writer, an ex-intelligence officer called George Markstein, to write a treatment. And that treatment, funnily enough, is what the James Follett novel, The Tiptoe Boys, is based on, that we're going to talk about a little bit as we talk about this. So he novelised the Markstein treatment, which is why there are some significant differences. Although, for the most part, it follows the same beats. There are just some extra bits, which we'll look at. But the final act is substantially different in the book.
Different, yeah.
So the shooting script ends up getting tightened up by an American writer called Reginald Rose, who Ewan Lloyd had worked with multiple times. He'd scripted The Wild Geese and The Sea Wolves, so he was an experienced writer. And then Lloyd thinks, right, I'm not going to get this made if I can't get the MOD on board, or at least let them know I'm doing it. So he tells the MOD what his intention is. The MOD say, well, we can't give you any assistance, because at that time, apparently, according to Ewan Lloyd himself, there'd been a TV programme that highlighted SAS activities in Northern Ireland in an extremely negative light. So the SAS had got quite a lot of bad press. But nevertheless, Lloyd sends the MOD his shooting script, and a week later he gets a phone call and he's invited to dinner at the Savoy with the then head of the SAS, Peter de la Billiere, and he gives him the SAS's goodwill, in inverted commas. So Lloyd never really went into any detail on what goodwill actually meant, and officially he says he got no support. But in the commentary on the DVD, Ian Sharp the director openly states that when the helicopters are coming in at the scene that we'll get to eventually, the guys on the outside of the helicopter who are about to rappel down to the roof of the house were all SAS veterans, including the one who led, I think he says that's the guy who led the Mogadishu raid. SAS nerds will know more what that means. But in the credits, it says military advisors, anonymous, which just adds to the mystique around this film in a really, really lovely way. So he gets funding. He thinks, how am I going to get this made? And again, this is Ewan Lloyd himself directly stated he'd been watching The Professionals on the box and absolutely loved it. So he had his eye already on Lewis Collins. And he thought, Lewis Collins, he could make a great action guy. And then he sat with VHS tapes and watched The Professionals over and over and over again, episodes multiple times, until he whittled the episodes down to the ones that were the best directed. And that's how he chose Ian Sharp. Minder, Sweeney, Professionals director, and chose Ian Sharp, who'd already got this reputation as a TV action director, and got him to work and got him to direct it, which is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So Lewis Collins and Ian Sharp got their big breaks. I mean, whether they became big breaks or not, we can probably talk about.
Yeah.
More so for Ian Sharp, I think, because he had a very successful career after. He directed the whole first series of Robin of Sherwood. Do you remember Cat's Eyes?
I do, yeah.
Which was that weird spin-off of The Gentle Touch.
Yeah.
That was a weird thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't remember. Is that Jill Gascoigne and Leslie Ash?
I'm pretty sure from memory, Jill Gascoigne plays her character from The Gentle Touch in it.
I think you might be right, because I was looking that up thinking, what was that all that about? And I looked it up because someone showed a picture and I thought, oh, that's The Gentle Touch.
Yeah.
And then they said, this is from Cat's Eyes. And I thought, hang on a minute, what is Cat's Eyes? That's Jill Gascoigne from, and I probably read a little bit about that.
Yeah.
It was a follow-on from that. It's probably about giving Leslie Ash a role. That'd be part of it, I imagine. But
yeah. We could do a whole series on a whole podcast on The Gentle Touch and Cat's Eyes, couldn't we? We won't get into that.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if there were novelisations of The Gentle Touch.
yeah.
But anyway, just for listeners who don't have a fucking clue what we're talking about, The Gentle Touch was like a gritty police drama about a female detective, and a lot of it took place in bleak tower blocks, is my main memory of it. But also, after Cat's Eyes, he also worked as second unit director on a load of films like GoldenEye, doing the action scenes.
Yeah,
which explains why the action in
yesterday.
GoldenEye was so good. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, yeah.
What? That seems quite weird, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But then he also says in the DVD commentary that the reason that he got the job on Who Framed Roger Rabbit is because Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg had seen Who Dares Wins.
Yeah,
And they wanted him for that reason.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Why didn't they want Lewis Collins?
I've no idea. Yeah. You know what? Let's talk about Lewis Collins.
Big break, yeah.
Let's talk about Lewis Collins right now. So again, for people who haven't got a bloody clue what we're talking about, how do you explain 1980s Lewis Collins to people?
Lewis Collins was probably one of my favourite actors. And when I say one of my favourite actors, what I mean is Bodie from The Professionals was one of my favourite characters. I absolutely loved him. I loved The Professionals. And he was the standout, a good-looking, tall bloke. He just really, really looked the part. Very short, close-cropped, dark hair. Looked like he could handle himself. Looked wiry, but he's also a bit of a rebel as well. I seem to remember in The Professionals, he was the one who got into trouble for breaking the rules time and time and time again.
Yeah.
And if you notice you certainly pick it up. I haven't seen The Professionals for a long time, but watching Who Dares Wins, you do pick up, he's from Birkenhead.
Yeah.
Which is on the Wirral up in Merseyside. And you do occasionally hear that, because I think he tones it down in Who Dares Wins, and he's quite clipped. But occasionally that Merseyside accent, Wirral accent comes out. And even that makes him sound just a little bit tougher.
Yeah. According to Ewan Lloyd, again, he spent a lot of time with Lewis Collins with things like elocution lessons to soften his hard edges.
That's what I picked up. I didn't read that. But I thought someone must have told him, just take those edges off.
Yeah. Because Lewis Collins, he could do all the army stuff and all that business because he was TA Parachute Regiment for 3 years. So he had his airborne wings and all that business. And according to legend, and actually, again, this is confirmed in the commentary if you listen to people like Ian Sharp, he passed the entry requirements for 21 SAS, which is the territorial army branch of the SAS. But because he was Lewis Collins and he was one of the most recognisable faces on British TV, they said no. But he was legit, in terms of training and all that business.
And he was a martial artist as well, a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I think that comes into The Professionals at times. You'll often see him in a dojo working out, fighting with people. He uses those moves. Yeah, and karate as well.
Even in that Renault Almera advert from the 90s that spoofed The Professionals, the guy spoofing Bodie has got the Adidas tracksuit top on, the towel around his neck, and he runs down the gym hallway punching locker doors, going go 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 go. Do you remember that Renault Almera advert?
No, I don't. I'm gonna have to look it up.
Oh, it was either Renault or Nissan Almera, and it was a spoof on The Professionals, and it was absolutely incredible. And I think the guy spoofing Doyle was Phil Cornwell.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know who the guy spoofing Bodie was, but it was Phil Cornwell spoofing Doyle. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Which was almost as good, because, of course, the other thing about The Professionals is they were spoofed in the comic strip Presents, in The Bullshitters and Detectives on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. And that was Keith Allen. Keith Allen was spoofing Bodie, and Peter Richardson was spoofing Doyle. But Phil Cornwell, in the second one, is Spanker. It was like a Jimmy Nail spender piss sake. Absolutely brilliant.
I'm remembering this right from The Bullshitters. It's just brought back a memory, and I haven't seen it in years. But isn't there are scenes where he's walking around in a leather jacket and he's got his gun holster on over his shoulders, and then underpants.
That's right. Yeah. I think Detective on the Verge of Nervous Breakdown, they spend the entire story just in shoes, socks, underpants, leather jackets and holsters.
I thought that was a true memory. Yeah,
it's an absolutely true memory. And that's the one where there's a car chase. It's Bodie, boxes! And they just drive through halves of boxes. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. But Phil Cornwell as Spanker, and there's a musical number in the police station with him as Spanker. It's absolutely incredible.
I heard Peter Richardson on the radio the other day with Alexis Sale. Yeah. And I think, are they bringing back some of those comic strip presents or
I
reshoot them, I
heard.
think.
I think I heard some of the same thing. It was on Radio.
I think
I
they're
heard him on Radio
re-editing
4.
it. Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah, it's on the news.
Yeah. So because I got the Comic Strip Presents box set when it came out on DVD about 15 years ago, and it was really badly framed, and edges of the image were clipped off. It was really fucking irritating, and it was like watching it on an old TV, but the actual image was cropped badly for every single episode. Oh, really irritating. So yeah, it does need some attention, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking about Comic Strip Presents again, we did that when we talked about Big Ron, didn't we? Yeah. So yeah, Iranian embassy siege anyway, massive impact on the early 80s zeitgeist, and the whole film has this very early 80s Daily Mail slant on the world. I say early 80s because the chief menaces at play are the CND, the lefties, the artsy-fartsy liberals and left-wingers, even within the People's Lobby, which is the fictional radical left organisation, which is the focus of this film and the ones who are up to no good. It's a front which is funded by a Middle Eastern financier who, it's a little bit more obvious in the book that he works for Colonel Gaddafi. It's a little bit more sort of generic in the film. So they're playing student politics that could bring down the country. And even when you get the scenes shot in the People's Lobby's headquarters, it looks like a load of lefty students with their printers and, you know, the fact that they're already squabbling between themselves about various different things. So it's all very familiar. And of course, we've got this thing about Middle East sponsored terrorism. Not a lot's changed in the last 45 years, has it, really, when you think about it?
No, and again, the initial blame, I suppose the only thing that changes is that the initial blame, they look at the IRA.
Yeah.
They think, who are this group? Is the IRA? And they immediately dismiss that. That if you brought that forward, you probably wouldn't mention that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the film, they actually do make some slight attempts with Edward Woodward's police character, Commander Powell, which we'll talk about shortly, to say, oh, it's not all of them. It's a tiny minority of troublemakers. So not all the lefties are terrible. It's just a tiny minority of troublemakers. The book doesn't really do the lefties any favours. The book is pretty much, you know what, the left-wing wankers. Even social workers get it in the neck in this book. Even social workers. This is from about halfway through the book, and there's a bit where the People's Lobby people who are going to come in and do the dirty deed come from all over the place. It says, they came to the city, 10 superbly fit and well-trained young men, all eager for battle, with money in their pockets and revolution in their hearts. They came by different routes at different times. Some arrived at Heathrow Airport, some at Gatwick, 2 passed through the formalities at Luton Airport, and 1 even turned up on a cross-channel ferry at Newhaven. Some hired cars, some used public transport, but in all cases their destinations were the same, London. Some found cheap hotels, 2 found an expensive one overlooking Hyde Park. A few materialised, all grins and souvenirs, on parents' doorsteps, and 1 even shacked up with a girl he met on the train. 1 arrived at Euston Station in the custody of the Transport Police for playing a duty-free ghetto blaster at full volume, much to the annoyance of the other passengers. A duty-free ghetto blaster? Does that mean that he bought it on the ferry or something? I don't really know.
Yeah, I guess.
But anyway, he was handed over to one of the hordes of marauding social workers in search of case histories who haunt Euston Station like the ghosts of steam locomotives.
Is that what they do?
Apparently they did in 1982.
Yeah, I must have missed that.
He ended up in the clutches of a social worker who was as bent as a bed spring, who had enough hang-ups to start a cloakroom. The young man escaped by boring the social worker senseless with non-stop talk about the coming revolution. But no matter where they ended up, they all called the same telephone number when they were settled in. What does that mean? What does that mean? He ended up in the clutches of a social worker who was as bent as a bed spring.
Wow.
And had enough hang-ups to start a cloakroom. So you've got this double whammy for social workers there. One is they're all just busybodies who haunt railway stations looking to pick people up for weird reasons, to have interesting case studies. I don't know. Fucking whining lefties. And this one is bent as a bed spring. Now, this is written in the early 80s, so does it mean bent
we know
as
what
in
he's
gay?
getting out there.
Does it mean bent as in gay, or does it mean bent as in corrupt?
No, I think it means bent as in gay. I think from the 1980s, I'm pretty sure that's what it means. I mean, it could be if we're being favourable, but I don't know why we would be.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I think in this book, in this world, social workers not only haunt railway stations looking for interesting cases because they've got nothing better to do, but they also are cruising.
Yeah.
They're cruising to pick up vulnerable youngsters.
Implication that they're grooming young men who come off and think, oh, you look like you've got troubles. Come in, I'll take you in, look after you. I'm sure that's the implication. It's horrible, isn't it?
Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. just amazing. So yeah, there's some stuff in this book which is quite hair-raising that isn't in the film.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we've got the scenes where they brief the Home Secretary or other ministers. This story benefits very much from the old perceptions we had of the highest levels of government. Like, I think the only time high levels of government were really challenged on TV were in satires like Yes, Minister, on one level, or in John Pertwee, Doctor Who, where the ministers were often like annoying old duffers who the Doctor hated. But for the most part, when you got these films and when you got these TV shows, this perception we have the highest level of government, these stiff, serious old white men in suits, they always have an air of authority and competence. It's very of its time. And you've got a lot of that in this as well. The scenes with, all the scenes with Edward Woodward. Should we tell the Edward Woodward joke, do you think? Will people
You can do,
that?
yeah. It did cross my mind, so.
Yeah. So, John, why did Edward Woodward have so many D's in his name?
I don't know, Andy. Why did he have so many D's in his name?
Because if he didn't, it'd be called Ewa Woo Wah. We got that one out of the way.
He's got some. I just love his glasses in this. He's got the thickest.
They're massive.
They're tremendous. He's got a lovely old police uniform. He looks great in it.
Do you think, though, that he sleepwalks his way through that role, doesn't he?
Yeah. I was hoping for more, I must admit.
Yeah.
I could have seen more from him. I do like him. And he did those police dramas. Did you ever watch Callan?
Yeah.
That was one. I'm not too familiar. I remember the name of it. I wasn't too familiar, but I do remember The Equalizer he went on to, which was a good series later on in the 80s.
Yeah, so this is Edward Woodward in almost in sleep mode. Just as a senior police officer, Commander Powell. But he has these scenes where he's talking to ministers and other serious people. And there's that bit where he says, well, they're not all... This is a very tiny minority of the left who are radical and anarchist and dangerous. Most of them are just normal, everyday people, well-meaning, well-intended people. Wrong people, but well-intended people who just want peace. I'm not sure those kind of scenes can work today, knowing what we know about politicians these days.
No.
I think politicians have lost that level of trust. If you try to get away with that in a film these days...
Competence as well.
Yeah.
They do strike me these days. They haven't got the weight and the clout of the politicians of old. I think if you look back, you think they were serious people back in the 70s and 80s.
They were serious people, and even when they were absolutely arseholed, you never found out about it.
No.
When they were arseholed, when they were in the local brothel, it was very, very rare you found out about these things. And when you did, it cost them everything, by and large. These days, thanks to modern media and the term in the online culture around politics, particularly in social media, because they're all addicted to social media, you can't actually escape how banal and disappointing most of them are. Yeah. I mean, it's a trope that persists in Hollywood, though. I wonder how long that can go on for, because seriously, look at the state of Trump's cabinet. Yeah. How much longer can they go on with those kind of ideas where you get an action film where they're like, we need to talk to the Secretary of State? And the Secretary of State
that's
is
the last thing we want
character.
To do.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, now, don't bring him into it. We've got to keep this a secret from that drunken lunatic.
Yeah. Oh dear. So let's have a think about the cast then. We've talked about Lewis Collins. We'll talk about why he wasn't a megastar. I think he should have been a megastar, shouldn't he? Handsome man. Does this film, it's one of the top-rated films in Britain that year, struggles to get a release in the States. And then where does he go from here? Apparently, Ewan Lloyd wanted to do a Falklands War movie that would have been called Task Force South. And Lewis Collins was attached to that, but it never got made. So he ends up signing a contract to do three films that are unkindly referred to as macaroni war films,
Right.
which were Antonio Margheriti films about mercenaries. One was
Yeah.
Codename Wild Geese, one was The Commander, and one was Panzer Leopard. What, Panzer Leopard, was it? Yeah. And, you know, I like them. They're a lot of fun. They're garbage, but they're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's low-budget Italian mercenary films. But, yeah, it just didn't happen for him, did it?
Did you hear that or read that story about him auditioning for Bond?
Yes, he did audition for Bond.
And
he
they
was
turned him
close to
down
getting it, apparently.
for being too aggressive. And I
was too
thought, wow,
rough-edged.
you know, that's really something, isn't it? Because I suppose that's the end of Roger Moore.
Yeah.
That'd have been that period. And for whatever reason, they said, yeah, he's that's it, too aggressive. And I think, well, that's quite something. But if you look at the way Daniel Craig played the role, you think they could have gone early, that.
Yeah, I think, again, if you listen to Ewan Lloyd and Ian Sharp, who both had an in on the industry, and Ewan Lloyd knew Cubby Broccoli and Barbara Broccoli very well. Collins was close to getting it, but he was too rough around the edges. There seemed to be some kind of falling out, and they made the decision. First off, they made the decision to just do another Roger Moore film, and that ended up being the last Roger Moore film. Was that View to a Kill or Octopussy? I can't remember. It was Octopussy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember.
So they went with one more Roger Moore film, which was a mistake. And then the cast, the rebooted everything, decided to go for a more serious hard edge Bond, and the cast Timothy Dalton, who could do the hard edge stuff, but he didn't have the twinkle in the eye.
No,
you know, because something Lewis Collins had. He looked great. He looked the part. He could do the action. He was physical. He could do everything he needed to do, but he also had a twinkle in his eye and a little bit of cheek. You know?
That comes across in Who Dares Wins. There are good scenes in there that really show that off.
Yeah, and he ended up a software salesman in California.
Nuts, isn't it? Yeah. And then there's a period. I will go into it later on because I want to talk about his roles in Panto.
Yeah,
in pantomime. But he played Peacock in Cluedo. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Yeah, the TV show. Yeah, Colonel Peacock.
Yeah.
No, Colonel Mustard.
Was it Mustard? Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah,
I was looking up, but was it Colonel Mustard?
Yeah, it was Mrs. Peacock and Colonel Mustard.
I'm thinking of Captain Peacock from I Hope and Surf.
From I Hope and Surf. Oh, yeah.
He'd have made a good Bond.
He would. And Lewis Collins would have made a great Captain Peacock as well. So, yeah, he did audition for Bond, and they decided to keep it goofy, went with Roger Moore for another film. Then they decided to go hard, went with Timothy Dalton because he was a serious Shakespearean actor. But those films never did that well because he just lacked the appropriate level of cheek and charisma. That even if you go with a serious Bond movie, you've got to have a twinkle in the eye. You know, you've got to have it there. And Timothy Dalton didn't have it. Whenever he went kicking people in, he was going glassy-eyed and looking like he was about to break down crying, which is not what you want from your Bond, is it?
No.
So, anyway, so other members of the cast, Judi Davis, interesting character. So Judi Davis, who plays Frankie Leith, who's the female antagonist, she's co-head of the People's Lobby. So Judi Davis, she's just done this film in Australia called My Brilliant Career, which got great notices, got a standing ovation at Cannes Film Festival. So Ewan Lloyd manages to get her. He contacts her. She's filming in Israel with Leonard Nimoy, of all things. Can't remember what it was. But he sends her, she says, send me some stuff so I can try and get my head around what you're looking for. So he sent her the speeches of Jane Fonda, Vanessa Redgrave, and Patty, the one who turned out to be Patty Hearst, was it?
Patty Hearst, yeah.
Yeah. And she got back in touch and said, all right, I get it. I get what you're looking for now. But since she made this, she's refused to talk about it. Oh. And her agent said, when people tried to get hold of her, her agent would say that's the one thing she doesn't want to talk about. Oh. So, whilst I think she does a really, really good job in this film of playing this sort of zealous, she does play a zealot really well, an ideological zealot. She does a great job. And when you get to the point where she's having doubts, she plays it brilliantly. But there's one scene where, well, we'll get to that actually. The scene where we find out how is Captain Skellen going to infiltrate the People's Lobby. We'll get to that in a bit. But other cast, Kenneth Griffith plays the bishop, this Bishop Crick, who, again, more of him in the novel, but in the film is played by Kenneth Griffith, who forever for me is seared in my memory for his turn in The Wild Geese as Whitty, the gay medic. He's absolutely fucking amazing in that film. Incredible turn. But he was all over British tellies in the 80s.
Yeah.
Really interesting thing about Griffith.
Familiar face, yeah.
Yeah, he was a firebrand and a controversial figure himself.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. And so he made numerous documentaries that, for the time, took massively contrarian positions for the time on things like the Boer War, on Northern Ireland. And there's a quote from him where he said, "In my time, I've been accused of being a Marxist, a fascist, a traitor, and probably worst in most people's eyes, inconsistent. I was a radical socialist. I'm now a radical Tory. It's been a very painful journey."
Jesus. What?
So, again, interesting guy. But his one main scene in this film, he has multiple scenes in the novel, but his main scene in the film is when he gives that sermon in the church. You know what? We'll get to that because there's a lot to talk about there. So you've got a really, really incredible range of character actors. You know, even fucking Patrick Allen turns up in one scene as the head of the Met. And he's like the head chief constable of the Met or whatever it is. He turns up, speaks in his deep booming voice, fucks off, and that's the last you see of him. So they've even got the guy who voiced all of the British public information films about nuclear attacks and how shit it would be and how to put your doors at 45%, 45 degrees to the wall. They even get him in it. Oh.
And let's not forget Ingrid Pitt.
Oh, fucking incredible. Incredible.
What's she doing in there? It's amazing. I had to check and think, really? What?
It's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? Because, you know, she's playing in her Hammer films in the 70s. She's in Countess Dracula. She's in The Wicker Man. She's in all sorts of Hammer stuff as like femme fatales. And then she rocks up in this, just that little bit older, with greying hair, crow's feet around her eyes. And she's absolutely fucking incredible in this film.
Yeah.
So
believable.
Yeah. Believable, vicious, mean, nasty. Yeah, it's incredible.
That bit with the child, you just think, oh my, what is going to happen here? Because you really don't know what's going to happen in this film because it is so grim.
Yeah.
And if she got hold of that child, heaven knows what would have happened to it.
Well, that's the funny thing about the book. Again, the book goes a step further, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, we'll get to that scene. So, yeah, Ingrid Pitt's incredible. She's actually playing a composite character called Helga in the film. In the book, she gets all the business of two characters in the book. Because in the book, there's Tricia, who's trained by Werner. And Werner is the West German, like, butch, lesbian trainer of all the People's Lobby terrorists.
Yeah. When you mentioned her the other day, you sent it, and I thought, what are you on about there? And I had to go back and check, and I thought, oh, of course, those are those scenes.
Yeah.
And they are striking scenes, but once I'd finished reading it, you do think, I'm not quite sure where this really fits in.
Yeah.
You don't remember that character
in the film,
as much.
In the film, Helga gets all of Werner's training scenes, and she gets Tricia's scenes, but then the one scene from the book where Werner gets their comeuppance, of course, isn't in the film, because you can only have the comeuppance for one of the characters.
Yeah.
Then we've got other main characters in the film, of course. We've got Malik, the financier.
Yeah.
He's barely in the film, really. He's a bit of a cipher, a simple coded Middle Eastern financier. In this book, he's much more outlined, works for the Colonel, who's obviously Gaddafi. There's a very amusing scene.
Gaddafi by name.
They do.
The book.
They do that. Yeah. There's a very amusing passage where he's fed up in his hotel room because British telly's so shit. There's only three channels on, so he's watching the darts, trying to figure out the story.
He really gets into it.
yeah. Absolutely brilliant. And of course, we've got Bishop Crick. We just talked about Kenneth Griffith. In the film, he comes across as pompous but well-meaning figurehead, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But in the book, he's a slimy, self-promoting, high-profile, left-wing firebrand. Once again, putting the booting on left-wing public figures who's more driven by
the figure there would have been Bruce Kent, but a very mild-mannered man.
Right.
So that man was often on the news, Bruce Kent.
Yeah.
But he was a gentle Christian man. He was nothing like Kenneth Griffith. But I imagine that's what they're aiming at. Let's have a religious man in here he's gone astray.
Yeah,
He's forgotten what he should be doing, which is just preaching on a Sunday. What's he
yeah.
doing meddling in C&D and politics?
Yeah, this version, this guy, he just wants to get his name in the Guardian, and he wants questions asked in Parliament by friendly MPs to raise his profile and all that business. So yeah, some of the characters in the book, the left wing characters in the book get off a lot less lightly than they do in the film. To be honest, a lot of them.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we talked broadly about a lot of this stuff. We've been going 50 minutes and we haven't really got to the film yet. But
let's get on with it.
So key scenes, we've talked about the opening shot of the cenotaph, that incredibly funky Roy Budd theme, and they've got that massive CND march where the organisers shot in the gob with a crossbow by Nazir from Robin of Sherwood, funnily enough. Because that's another cast member we haven't talked about, Mark Ryan. Phil met Mark Ryan at the Sci-Fi Weekender in Great Yarmouth and had a chat to him with Sarah. I think me and Stu just stayed in bed and they went to hobnob with the stars. Yeah, they had a chat. So Mark Ryan ended up having quite a successful voice acting career. He's like did voices for stuff like Transformers and things like that in the big Transformers movies. Yeah, interesting guy. And again, the camera gets up in the faces of the marchers. You got families, old folk, normal people, and it introduces Rod and Frankie. I think it's deliberately hinted right from the off. They got that guy set up to be shot. We found out in a subsequent scene that he was the informer. Ewa Woo-Wahs, Commander Powell, and a bunch of suits are discussing his killing. They know the People's Lobby. They know they're plotting something, but the informer didn't know exactly what, so they need a new way in. So we cut to the Brecon Beacons, with Skellen's squad of recognisable British character actors playing his SAS squad. One of which I couldn't quite place. But one of them's Nick Brimble, who was in shitloads of British TV. Probably his biggest moment was Little John in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the Kevin Costner movie. And the other one is Ziggy Byfield. Oh my God, he was in so much telly in the 70s and 80s and probably into the 90s as well. But according to Wikipedia, he played 14 different characters in 18 episodes of The Bill. So there you go. He really was all over the telly. We get this setup where a couple of Special Forces dudes from the US Army Rangers, Hagen, and another one from West Germany's GSG-9 are on a 2-month secondment to the SAS, and they have the extreme misfortune to be assigned as the rabbits in a hunt on the Brecon Beacons, with Skellen and his squad as the chasers. Well, unlucky lads. It don't go so well for them. And that's where you get a real sense that this film ain't pulling any punches, because the scene where they catch up to them and Skellen is basically roughing them up and they hog-tie them and torture them. Oh, it's pretty brutal, isn't it?
And he batters them with the butt of his gun, punches them repeatedly.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's as bad as the book.
No.
They tie Hagen to the railway track.
Yeah.
And they're going to run him over in a gurney.
Right, yeah.
And you leave that scene and think, well, he's dead.
Yeah, so of course in the book, there's only Hagen. And this is another one of the things about the book. Hagen in the book is a much more important character, as we find out by the end as well. And Hagen, the GSG-9 guy and Hagen in the film come across as a little bit hapless, don't they? They're obviously fit because they get to that mountain, but they're beaten there by the SAS guys because they're too slow. There's a scene later on where they do an exercise that some SAS guys have just done, and they're really pleased with themselves. But again, they're set up to look a little bit hapless and sloppy, and less professional and less capable. The book's very different. In the book, Hagen is obviously a really, really capable guy, but he just ends up in this situation that he's got no control over. And of course, it's all part of that setup, you know?
Yeah.
It's good stuff. You got to reference Collins again here and his physicality. So we talked about how he's, he did have some genuine like military training and everything else, and he was almost James Bond. But that physicality where he's just acting, beating someone up, it's really fucking convincing. Really convincing. So you get this impression,
and making little jokes while he does it. They got a quota for people dying on those exercises, and he hasn't met it.
Yeah, that's right.
He's almost saying, well, if you die, so what? I'm allowed 2 deaths a year.
Yeah. And actually, that is a thing, isn't it? That there are fatalities in the Brecon Beacons with army training for the Paras and the Marines and the SAS. That's something that pops up in the news from time to time. So, he just uses that as a gag while he's beating the crap out of these 2 poor blokes. So Skellen gets booted out of the SAS for being a nasty twat, apparently. And there's this great line from his boss who says, and his boss is played by another recognisable face, Tony Doyle. Probably best known to a lot of people for being in Ballykiss Angel before he died, which was a massive hit on telly at the time. But he's brilliant in it, Tony Doyle says. When the SAS is called upon to do what we're trained to do, we have been likened to a surgeon cutting out a cancer. It's a filthy and difficult job. We don't like doing it, but it's our duty. Now you are beginning to enjoy it too much, which is a brilliant line. So you've got Lewis Collins stood there stewing, and he decides to resign his commission because they're not going to court-martial him. They're going to return him to unit, which he sees as a humiliation. So he says, I'd rather resign my commission. And there we have it. We have our setup. And, Hagen will come to realise later on that he was put through the mill with all of this, and he will still yet be manipulated further in order to create this...
It's like a ruse or a ploy, isn't it?
Authentic. Yeah, it's a ruse, it's a ploy. It's an authentic... reason
cover, really.
Yes, for Skellen to rock up with a people's lobby as a disgraced SAS man and say, well, I'm a lefty as well, can I join your gang? The way he goes about that, we'll talk about that. But he's back in London. He had dinner with his wife and his 18-year-old daughter to tell her he's off on a job for a while.
Is she 18-month old, isn't she?
18 months, 18 months old. Samantha, his little daughter Samantha. Then we hard cut to a shot of Lewis Collins walking down a snowy street to meet his contact at the market. Black polo neck, white raincoat. My God. It looks completely, from today's standards, it looks ridiculous. But my God, what a fucking beautiful guy Lewis Collins was to be able to get away with that.
Yeah.
Just incredible. Absolutely incredible. Ryan bungs him some money in an envelope. Ryan's his contact. Tells him where to find the People's Lobby. So what is Skellen's plan to infiltrate the People's Lobby, John?
Well, what he wants to do is just seduce Frankie.
That's right. It's just to walk up to the main bird in the People's Lobby, cock his eyebrow, Roger Moore style, and try and get her into bed.
All right, love. You're coming home with me.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's ridiculous and a little bit silly and a little bit James Bond. And in the context of this film, it shouldn't work, right?
No.
But it absolutely does work because the sexual tension in that scene between those two, it nearly sets the screen on fire.
It crackles, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's not like the book. In the book, he drives into the back of her, doesn't he?
That's right, yeah.
And he prangs the car.
Yeah. She's a very different character in the book, isn't she?
I always imagine her, because when I was watching in the film, she sounds like she's American or whatever.
Yeah.
She's a very prim and proper English girl with a almost aristocratic father who's money, bankrolling her lifestyle.
Yeah, she's more like the Helen Mirren character in Oh Lucky Man. She's a beautiful heiress with shitloads of cash, a posh sports car, drop dead gorgeous. Whereas in the film, he meets her at this club, and she's and this scene does take place in the book, but it's slightly different. She's performing in a sort of art dance group, arty dance troupe.
It's sort of a political cabaret thing.
Yeah, and that piece is, I mean, it's perfect for the movie, and it works in the context of the movie because it makes you think, oh my God, these people are assholes.
Yeah, but also, I've probably seen things like that in the 80s. It does seem, it does seem genuine. I'm sure I saw that on Channel 4 in 1982.
Yeah, it's all just artsy-fartsy, performative dance.
Anti-bomb,
anti-American. It's makes your skin crawl. It's so cheesy, but it's perfect for the movie. It sets the People's Lobby up absolutely perfectly. And the rest of these shots of in there, they're all just sat there smoking cigarettes. You've got the stage, but it's basically just a dingy club. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And it could have been a club in the Sweeney or the Professionals. It's just the scale's bigger.
Can we just go back a bit? There's a bit in the book where it looks like Skellen's been kicked out of the SAS.
Yeah.
And he's looking for a job, and he wants a job as a mercenary. And he makes that advert, and he's got a script and hands over to the woman. He says, well, you can't say this. and he's written it down. There must be some sort of TV thing where they broadcast them as like, "Hi, I'm looking for work, and I can do this, this, and this." And so you'd imagine some bloke saying, "I'm a carpenter. I can put up fences. I can fix doors. Blah blah blah." He does it as a mercenary, and he says, "I can kill." On command, and he says, "You can't say that." And he said, "But." And then he says, "Well, they might think I'm a rat catcher." But the people who know will know what I'm on about.
Yeah,
it's an absolute, but it's a great comic moment, and I think those comic moments probably a little bit stronger in the book than they are in the film.
Yeah. It's the book is more pointed in a number of different ways, isn't it?
What is it? Yeah, I'm prepared to kill legally.
yeah, it's amazing. But that flirting scene in the film is just absolutely ridiculous. And Frankie is very different in the film. She is sultry, but in a really different way. Because Judy Davis is an attractive woman, but she's not a glamorous woman, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And she's got the big hair. She's got the downplayed makeup.
But also, can I just cut in there? I think Lewis Collins has got big hair as well.
He has got big hair.
His hair is too big, and I don't like it because he looks like Max Bygraves. Because if you look at him in the professionals, he's got great hair.
Yeah,
it's short.
Yeah,
but he's got long black sideburns, very short, and when it grows out, it's shaggy, and it looks absolutely. It's a fantastic haircut, whether it's short or long and shaggy. Yeah. What he does in that is he backcombs it. Don't do that, mate. Yeah, you look like you're a cabaret singer.
Yeah, the stylist in that is definitely going for something a little bit more bouffanty.
Yeah, it is a bouffant, and I think I could do without that. But he's still a good-looking man, but with a bouffant. I think don't do that, Skellen. You look ridiculous.
Well, you know what? He's done it, and we've got to live with it. We've got to live with it.
It wins the day. It wins the day. I mean, Frankie can't resist.
No, and the book doesn't really tell us what his hair's like in the book, so we've got nothing to compare it to.
No, I suppose,
But he's a boyfriend now, basically, much to Rod's disgust. Rod, we haven't talked about Rod.
Rod hates him. Yeah.
Rod
rumbles him from the start, really.
Yeah. Rod's got his number. Rod, played by British TV stalwart John Duttine, of course, who seemed to be in everything for a while, and they just sort of vanished. He was in Day of the Triffids, wasn't he? He was the main guy in Day of the Triffids. But he does a really great job.
His son, his son's still around, Joe Duttine. I don't know if John Duttine's still alive.
Really?
I think it's his son. I always assumed it was.
Right.
And he's been in some good stuff recently. He's never had a leading role or anything, but he's a good actor. Very similar to John Duttine. You're very competent, very reliable.
So I'm sure I've probably seen him loads of times and just not realised who he is.
Yeah, he's in a thing recently, a couple of years back, called The Capture. I don't know if you saw that on BBC.
Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, I've seen him on the box.
Yeah.
I probably never would have associated him.
Yeah,
I probably never would have associated him with John Duttine because this guy's balding.
Yeah.
And he was in Coronation Street. Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but solid, reliable actor, John Duttine. I think he does a really good job in this of just being like a surly, snarling, Skellen stroke Lewis Collins hater, which is all he really needs to do there. So there's a big bit of like sort of middle movie, but let's spin things on a little bit. So Skellen is firmly ensconced as Frankie's boyfriend now. He's living with her.
Yeah.
He has a little quiet sneak off to see his wife, and Rod don't trust him a bit. So Rod has got Helga in the film, or Tricia in the book, and Mac, who's played by Mark Ryan in the film, tailing Skellen. And yes, there are a few nice little scenes of surveillance and counter-surveillance and him escaping them by jumping buses, which are all really nice.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, eventually, they do twig that this guy Ryan, who he keeps meeting, is some form of contact. So there's a great scene where he talks to Ryan on a bus and Ingrid Pitt kills him with poisonous perfume.
Yeah.
Cyanide perfume. She's so you get the impression that Helga, she's not some, lefty radical. She's hardcore. She's German. She's hardcore. She's probably got some kind of secret service or deeply dodgy history. Yeah, she's the real deal. But then we get church gig. We get church gig. So there is so much to talk about with Church Gig. You start. Let's talk about Church Gig.
Well, the first thing I want to mention is, I don't know if you're going to come onto this, but the band they've got to play at the Church Gig is, I mean, it's, in a way, it's the worst thing in the film. It might be one of the worst things I've ever seen. They are so out of place, and you think that is what some sort of middle class Daily Mail reader will think is a punk band.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. Because they've all got
noisy,
beards. Yeah,
but they're like Boz Scaggs or something like. It's a nice sort of rocking number.
Yeah,
but these are some middle-aged men.
Well, you came right on
doing
time.
Fine.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Yeah, they all look like me 20 years ago. They've got beards.
I was going to say, I mean, the lead singer is a bit like, he reminded me of Bob Seger.
Yeah.
Then you've got the bass player from Chaz and Dave on bass. You've got Chaz from Chaz and Dave playing the drums. And then you've got some bloke. I mean, he's got that, like, he looks like a German peaked cap. And from a distance, you think, oh, he looks a bit like Julian Cope.
Yeah.
And then they close in, and he looks like Barry Gibb.
That's right.
And they're absolutely awful. And you think, it's supposed to be a band like The Clash. And they've just got this rocking pub band with Barry Gibb, Chaz and Dave, and Bob Seger.
Well, this is entirely because this film was made by Daily Mail readers who don't really understand the scene.
Yeah. So they get him in. There's the bass player out of Fairport Convention.
That's right.
Folk band.
Yeah.
And then these brothers, I think, called Donohoe or Donahue or someone.
Well, I'm not sure if the Donahues are actually brothers. There might be, but one Jerry Donahue is from Fairport Convention.
Yeah.
Mark Donahue is a co-composer of some of the music and was also involved in the Wild Geese score, so he's a musician.
Yeah.
Jerry Conway was in Fairport Convention, Jethro Tull, Pentangle, and played for Cat Stevens. And Dave
Not the Clash,
Pegg,
then.
No. And Dave Pegg was also in Fairport Convention and Jethro Tull. So this is 75% of Fairport Convention with and like maybe 20% of Jethro Tull. 1978 to 1981, and this is who they put together to play Roy Budd's protest song.
And all the punks in the audience are going mental. But then you've got a load of Nazis as well who start Sikh Island to the music.
It's absolutely incredible.
What do you think this band is supposed to be? Because they are absolute shit.
Personally, I'd written a little note saying, Roy Budd, great jazz pianist, incredible composer, not only did this and the Sea Wolves and all these other films in the 70s, did Wild Geese 2 as well. The score is the best thing about that film by a million miles.
Yeah.
Ingrid Pitt's in that as a heavy as well, but she barely gets any screen time, which is an absolute fucking crime. But Roy Budd also did the music for Get Carter. And then it's like, right, we need a protest song for this radical lefty concert. And he comes up with, well, you're right on time, we're doing fine. And in many ways, for the type of song that it is, it's a brilliantly constructed song. But it's not a protest song. And it's not a punk song. And it's not... And it really makes...
They're all middle-aged men. Everyone in the audience, you think they're going to be 18 to 25.
Yeah.
And these 40-year-old real ale drinkers go and bring the house down.
But the crazy thing about like 1982 and beards and fashion, they were probably all 26.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's really hard to tell, isn't it? There could be anything from 26 to 45, and you wouldn't really know. I mean, we only know they're older than that because they're Fairport Convention. For the most part, they're Fairport Convention. But it's an incredible scene, and you've got the crowd. The crowd are all. The other thing about it is like the response of the crowd to it is like. Yeah. It's filmed and shot and staged by somebody who doesn't really understand the scene that they're trying to recreate, because they're going, we were right on time, we're doing fine, and the crowd's just going, clap, 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 clap. Apart from the row of skinheads who are going, hey, see Kyle, see Kyle. It's just crazy. But then, of course, Kenneth Griffith comes on as the Bishop Crick to give his sermon about how nuclear weapons are going to destroy the world and everything else, at which point some yob in the galleries goes, shut up, get the music back on. and then they just send it to a massive fight.
That's a Fairport Convention fans. They got mental.
You just get this huge riot in the church. Some poor copper gets booted in the face in particularly violent, unpleasant fashion.
I bet it was happening every week, wasn't it? When these folk rock bands, the police probably hated it when those gigs were going on.
Yeah, fucking hell. That's probably why Lindisfarne decided to just do Fog on the Tyne to get away from all the violence.
Yeah.
Dear.
The Nazis are kicking off. We're going to have to go into the studio and...
Yeah. It's a fun scene, and I enjoy it for what it is, but I enjoy it for the preposterously, badly pitched idea of what this might have looked like. But it is fun. It's part of the film. It's part of the film's identity, and I can't help but love it. I just love it.
I can't help. I'm always singing that song. I can't get it out of my head.
In the book, of course, Skellen uses this opportunity to nip out and try and make a phone call, and almost gets caught by Rod again, because Rod's always watching him. But we get to the point now where Skellen actually finds out what the deal is and what their overall plan is, and we'll probably have to put our foot down on this a little bit. But essentially, the book and the film follow a similar track for a while. The idea is that they're going to hijack a coach full of US Air Force bandsmen who are going to play at a reception that the American ambassador is putting on for the American Secretary of State, an American Air Force general who was one of the biggest head honchos, and a load of other American embassy staff and some British politicians. So they're going to go there and they're going to hijack it. Why? We still don't quite know yet, and Skellen doesn't know. But they still don't trust Skellen enough to loop him in on things. They don't trust him enough, for example, to give him a gun. But there's a little bit more detail in the book. They've got weapons, they've got hand grenades, they've got all sorts of equipment, they've got TV, heat detecting TV monitors and all sorts of stuff. And they're successfully... There's a brutal scene. It's brutal in the book, it's brutal in the film as well. It's very similar, where one of the bandsmen tries to grab a gun and he gets killed, and a poor woman, the singer of the band, also gets brutally machine gunned in the back. And when you get the moments of violence in this film, they are they're not excessive, but they are sufficiently bloody to really punctuate the slow burn of the movie. In the book, the violence is a little bit more visceral, and we've got some good examples of that coming up as well. But long story short, they get to the residence, they hijack the place, and they hijack the dinner party. And in the film, you get this wonderful scene where there's some amazing scared woman acting from all these aging female extras who all look like 50, 60, 70 years old. I mean, the scene where the police are ushering him out at the end is hilarious. The overacting, the hysterical overacting that they're doing. But there's this brilliant bit where Richard Widmark is the Secretary of State. Yeah. And another recognisable American actor whose name escapes me plays the General. Robert Webber. Robert Webber plays the General. So all of a sudden, 2/3 of the way through this film, these two really big, recognisable American character actors appear. We have had a snatch shot of Richard Widmark previously, because something else we've not mentioned is that in the film and in the book, Hagen and the German get their revenge when Tony Doyle tells them where Skellen is shacked up, so they go there and you get this brilliant fight scene where they beat the shit out of him. So while Skellen's recovering in bed, Frank is watching on TV the arrival of the American Secretary of State. So we've already seen Richard Widmark, so we know that Richard Widmark's going to be in it further down the line. But there's this absolutely amazing bit where they've hijacked the dinner party, this woman is panicking, she's screaming, and this old English duffer leans across the table and says, "Madam, don't you dare cry in front of this rebel." It's absolutely amazing. And she's, it's brilliant. But we've got to talk about Richard Widmark and what he brings to this film, because he's fucking great in this film. And so you've got this, again, the book is a little bit different, but you've got this setup in the film where they've got them all in the dining room. They take all the women and the servants, put them elsewhere. So you've got all these old duffers sitting around drinking sherry and smoking cigars, and you got Weber, General Weber's just like sort of tapping on the table, giving them all a look of absolute disgust. And just absolutely dismantling them with his eyes. But then you've got Richard Widmark there, and he has a conversation at one point with Frankie after they transmit their demands. Oh, he's got so much gravitas. It's ridiculous. It just really brings something to the table in this film, even though it was quite late in his career. I don't think he did that many films after this, Richard Widmark, because he's this huge presence. He's been in John Ford westerns and all this business. You know, he's super, super professional. And depending on which interview or which film extra you listen to, he could be really, really difficult to work with. I mean, is it the film To the Devil a Daughter? Is that the one? The late 70s one. I think it's To the Devil a Daughter. Apparently it was an absolute nightmare to work with. But when you listen to Ian Sharp talk about him, Ian Sharp said he was on set at 8:30 every morning, even if he wasn't filming a scene till 4 o'clock. He was on set, he was dressed, he was prepared every single day. And at one point, Ian Sharp, who's only directed TV to this point, he's got Robert Webber and Richard Widmark there, and he's like, thinks he's in fucking Wonderland. And he has a conversation with Richard Widmark, and he said, I'm just amazed that you're here at 8:30 every day. You know, we might not use you till the afternoon. Richard Widmark says, this is how it works. And he explained that he worked for John Ford, and if you didn't do that, you were off the movie. And your feet didn't touch the ground, and you had to be absolutely professional. So maybe on To the Devil a Daughter, Richard Widmark didn't find that professional atmosphere that he was used to, and was a bit shitty with people. I don't know, but he really brings something to the film. And then we get to the point where, so the contact, we get Edward Woodward comes back. They contact the powers that be and tell them what the demands are. Yeah. Well, the demand. They want the UK government or the Americans, whoever, to point a nuclear missile at Hurley-Lock submarine base and fire it at Hurley-Lock submarine base to demonstrate to the world the horrors of a nuclear bomb. Yeah. My reaction, and I think most of the audience's reaction when they're watching this, is much the same as Skellen, the Secretary of State, the General, where they all just look at her and go, "You're fucking nuts."
Yeah.
You're absolutely fucking nuts.
Are you absolutely sure about that?
Yeah. But again, there's a difference between the book and the film, because in the book, Skellen has an exchange with Frankie where she basically calls him a naive idiot, and of course they know the missile will never launch. They're just there as martyrs. It's all for show. It's all a big show. It's going to end in bloodshed. It's all going to be broadcast on TV. Nobody's going to survive, and that's the idea. Whereas in the film, you're very much given the sense at this point that even though to this point they've been ruthless zealots, they really have overreached. And whereas Rod and Co are still pushing and still sticking to the line, Frankie starts to have serious doubts about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and whether this will ever happen. So it's very different. In the book, she's very, very cynically zealous. And we know we're all going to die. Yeah, different in the film. But we'll get a closer look at some of the terrorists now as well. Again, loads of familiar favourites from British telly, including Jock from Porridge. Jock from Porridge is one of the terrorists. Which is nice. Nice to see him get some work.
Lovely actor,
Yeah, and a guy called Ralph Arliss, who was making his second Breakfast in the Ruins appearance because he was Kick-Along in Quatermass. Right, and this was the first time I've ever spotted him. I don't think he gets a line, but he's there throughout. He's there all the time, and he's very, very recognisable. But then you get this incredible conversation between Richard Widmark, where he has this debate with Frankie and completely dismantles her entire belief system about everything, to the point where Rod's just saying, "Shut up! Stop talking to him!" And at this point, it's like it's just everything's going to pieces for Frankie in the film. In the book, Not so much. That scene doesn't really take place in the book. There's a very different scene in the book, which we'll get to. But for now, we have to cut back to the Muse, because Helga and her lackey in the film, in order to get, we've forgot to say this, in order to get Skellon's absolute commitment and as insurance, Rod dispatches Trisha and Mac in the book and Helga and Mac in the film to Skellon's house. And in the film, it's these like quite pleasant mews in London that now would probably be £800,000 or £1 million houses. And you get a really, really brilliant sense of what a fucking awful monster Ingrid Pitt's character is. You referenced it earlier on. She's an absolute monster. And there's another difference in the film where there's a police constable guarding the house. So he gets knocked on the head and dragged in as well and handcuffed up, which I think was a great addition in the film because he keeps getting beaten up by Nazir from robbing a Sherwood as well. But you get this wonderful build of Ingrid Pitt getting more and more frustrated with the baby crying, whilst next door the SAS move in and start dismantling the partition wall brick by brick so they can put a probe through to observe what's going on.
Yeah.
And you've got this, it's just brilliant. That says this guy, so, hello, sir. Do you mind if we come in for a moment? There's a bit of a problem going on next door. It's like, oh, yeah, come in. And then the SAS all pile into his house and start dismantling his living room. Well, there's a brilliant bit in the book.
Out,
the amount of detail they go into in the book on how they dismantle the wall is incredible. I absolutely love it. I love it. Another interesting little factoid as well. You know the SAS soldier with a big tash?
Yeah.
In the Muse house. I'm sure he's from Hull. I'm sure he was in a sitcom in the early 80s about astronauts in space on a space station. And he was an Hull Kingston Rovers fan.
Wow.
Yeah. And I can never remember what it's called. But yeah, listeners, if you can remember a sitcom from the 80s about people on board a space station, and one of them's from Hull, and he's an Hull Kingston Rovers fan, and he's got his scarves and everything all over his bedroom on the space station. For Christ's sake, get in touch and tell me what it was, because I can never, ever remember. But yeah, anyway, he's from Hull. So there's this absolutely fucking brilliant bit where it says, Clegg and Dowsett moved on tiptoes. They carefully shifted Alan Martin's furniture away from the wall and set it down without making an unnecessary sound. They left the television blaring in the corner. Grant helped them spread dust sheets on the floor. Alan Martin watched the proceedings in disbelief as Clegg silently worked an ice pick into the wall a metre above the floor and prized a section of plaster away. Dowsett seized hold of the plaster and eased it back and forth until it came away in his hands. Small crumbs of plaster were hanging from the main piece by coarse hairs. Dowsett gave Grant a triumphant grin. Look at that! Fibrous plaster! We're laughing. Grant examined the lump of plaster with some satisfaction. 19th century builders mixed horsehair into their plaster to help it bind together as a mass. Also, fibrous plaster had a degree of flexibility. It had none of the brittleness of modern plasters, and therefore was not prone to cracking. Providing it's not the same on the other side of the wall, Grant remarked cautiously. I'm sure it will be, said Alan Martin. This used to be my mother's house. I've lived here all my life, and I don't think there's been that much rebuilding. How about war damage rebuilding? Asked Grant. This street was lucky, Alan Martin answered. It escaped the worst of the Blitz. Clegg worked some more plaster away from the wall and exposed some thin horizontal wooden strips. Better and better, the soldier observed. Lath and plaster. We're quids in, although I'll need some help getting the rest of the plaster off. It's just absolutely amazing. The amount of detail that the author goes into the nature of plaster and lath and everything else. Oh, it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Stick an endoscope through, figure out what's going on, and then the scene plays out much the same as the book, with the exception of the addition of the captive policeman. And the point at which Helga becomes infuriated by the screaming of baby Samantha has extra frisson in the book. So in the film, of course, Ingrid Pitt is getting really pissed off. She's saying, "Give me that baby!" And Judith said, "No!" And they end up in a massive fight. "Right!" shouted Tricia. "Give her to me!" "No!" screamed Jenny. Tricia pressed the muzzle of a gun against Samantha's head. "You give her to me or I'll blow her brains all over you." Clegg had finished. He moved away from the wall and dragged his equipment clear. The two SAS troopers took up their positions side by side opposite the hull and braced themselves for their charge. Tricia jammed a gun in her belt and dragged Samantha, kicking and howling, from her mother's arms. She threw the child on the floor, snatched up a poker, and swung it aloft. What? No, screamed Jenny. She dived forward at Trisha's legs. Mac fired at Jenny and the bullet chewed into the chair where Jenny had been sitting. Trisha toppled over and managed to claw her automatic from her belt. Mac swung his gun towards Jenny. Then the impossible happened with appalling suddenness. The entire wall of the living room burst inwards and two figures in black launched themselves through the hole. The first one fired several rounds at Mac. The force of the impact destroyed his face and hurled him downwards. "Jenny, down, down!" yelled the second figure. Not really knowing what she was doing, Jenny snatched up Samantha and stood, blocking the second SAS trooper's line of fire. Suddenly she was knocked off her feet just as Trisha raised a gun to fire at Samantha. At the exact moment that Trisha's finger tightened on the trigger, 4 bullets slammed into her body. 2 hit her in the chest, 1 passed through her neck, and the 4th hit her in the temple. The exit wound from the 9mm slug was such that fragments of her skull smashed the room's front window and shattered a wall mirror. Her lifeless body keeled over. The rounds that killed her were the same calibre as she had used to kill Wilcox outside the Houses of Parliament. Because Trisha kills Wilcox in the book, not Nazir. So yeah, she was going to fucking beat the baby to death with a poker.
Oh, horrible.
Absolutely incredible. These bloody lefties, they're sick.
Yeah.
The Daily Mail was right all along. So yeah, movie Helga, composite of those two characters. You know what? We've been recording a long time. I was going to read the chapter where Werner gets her bit, but I think we're getting a bit pushed for time. I don't know. Should I read it? All right, I'll read it.
I don't mind. You can always edit it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Okay.
I'll make it into 2 parts.
Somebody had once said, jocularly, about Werner, "I wouldn't like to run up against her in a dark alley." She was tough, no doubt about it, well-built, buxom, even muscular, and she had been well trained in the terrorist camps of Yemen and the Lebanon, taught how to garrote with a piece of wire, kill outright with 1 stab of a dagger, not as easy as it sounds, hurl a grenade, to assassinate and murder and booby trap. She was a crack shot. She could handle a rocket launcher, knew how to make a time bomb, and knew how to kill with her bare hands. There was no method of ending lives that she didn't know about. Her instructors were proud of her, and she since had passed on her skills to many young men and women. She was a good teacher too. To those who liked the women big and powerful, she was even attractive. Werner herself had little time for such frivolities. Those who disliked her said that she got sexual satisfaction only from using a rifle muzzle as a dildo. Others that she was merely asexual. CIA records showed that her closest friends had been women like Gudrun Ensslin and Ulrike Meinhof, Elizabeth van Dyke, and other heroines of the World Revolution, most of whom had died, as Werner herself would wish to go, on active service. But she also had a ferocious temper, and once smashed the jaw of a girl in Hamburg who had, she thought, made a remark about her 2 companions. 2 Palestinians who were posing as Turks in Hamburg on their way to blow up a Jewish cafe in Berlin. So we've got this setup about Werner. Now, it's a real shame the film combined these 2 characters, because in the book, Werner does get this really fantastic comeuppance. It says, it was Werner's bad luck that the Yard teleprinter chattered out her description and the fact that she had arrived in London just as Detective Sergeant Irene Conway was leaving Kensington Police Station. Sergeant Conway, a tall, slim, dark-haired young woman, looked an unlikely detective and an even more unlikely special branch officer. She glanced at the teleprinter and registered Werner's description. Hefty, buxom, blonde, well-built. She went over to the bulletin board where the poster with the pictures of certain wanted terrorists had been stuck for months. Werner, under her various aliases, was amongst them. She was second from the left third row. It was even more Werner's bad luck that she should be walking past Redcliffe Gardens just as Sergeant Conway came along. The special branch officer glanced twice at her without betraying any recognition. Instead, she slowed down so that she fell behind Werner and started following her. She considered momentarily making for a phone, but she'd probably lose Werner in the meantime. Best to trail her. Werner sauntered along unaware that she was being shadowed. She came to the Syrian cafe, but it was closed. "Verflucht!" cursed Werner. The rucksack she was carrying was getting heavier. She could do with a rest. She looked round, spotting Luigi's bistro, and went inside. So did Sergeant Conway. Werner sat at a table by the counter. She ordered an espresso and a plate of spaghetti bolognese. She never worried about her figure. At the table across from her, Sergeant Conway also sipped a coffee and made up her mind. It would take Werner at least 10 minutes to eat a pasta. There was a phone kiosk on the other side of the road. The woman detective paid and left without even glancing at Werner. In the kiosk, she dialed her office. What she told her senior officer set wheels in motion. Sergeant Conway left the phone booth and bought a newspaper before returning to the bistro and ordering another coffee. Werner was shoveling spaghetti into her mouth, suspecting nothing. In the street outside, a Hillman Minx with 3 men in it pulled up by the pavement. So did a green Ford a little further away. 2 men got out. Werner ordered another coffee. She felt better now. She decided she might try phoning Frankie. Great caution would be needed. From Frankie's reaction, Werner was confident she could judge it if it was safe to talk and arrange where to meet. The 3 men who had arrived in the Minx entered the bistro. Werner glanced up, eyes narrowing. A decade of war against the state had given her the instinct of a wild animal in the jungle. The men could have been anything. They were roughly dressed, but something about them. Sergeant Conway was suddenly at her side, twisting around behind her back. At the same time, the 3 men were round the table, grabbing her. "All right, Fraulein," said Sergeant Conway quite politely. "Don't make any trouble." "You're under arrest," added one of the men unnecessarily. The second man was standing, feet apart, arms extended in an approved style, a .38 clasped in his hands, pointing straight at Werner's head. The third man kicked her rucksack to one side. "What is this?" demanded Werner. "I'm a tourist." She tried to get to her feet. As one of the men produced handcuffs, she lashed out with her right foot and caught him in the stomach. Sergeant Conway, who was holding her arm, lost her balance. Werner's head butted her savagely. The special branch woman staggered and Werner kicked out again, teeth bared. She was a formidable fighter and much of her bulk was sheer, hard muscle. "Stop!" yelled the detective with a gun. Werner launched herself at him and almost as a reflex action he fired. The bullet at point-blank range ploughed into her throat. Werner croaked briefly, blood gushing. Then her body crashed to the floor, half-chewed spaghetti spilling from her mouth. The indignity of her ignominious end was a fitting reward for the death and misery she had inflicted on the world. "Christ!" whispered the detective with a gun. He was white-faced. For weeks afterwards, various publications would have a field day elaborating on the incident in which armed police had shot down an unarmed German tourist. They would make much of the fact that Werner did not even have a gun on her. There would be little mention of the 2 detectives she'd killed in Rotterdam, nor would she be linked with the People's Lobby. 3 things there. 1, that would have been a great scene in the film. That would have been a real cool scene, especially with the Roy Budd, sort of ting, 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 ting soundtrack with it all building up. 2nd, how fucking judgmental is this? A woman sits down and orders a plate of spaghetti and he asks to make a comment about what... Well, she obviously doesn't care about a figure then, does she? If she's ordering a plate of spaghetti. Incredible. And the 3rd thing is... bloody publications that have a field day. So the coppers have done the job and they'll just get grief in the media.
Yeah.
The tone and the position that this book takes are consistently remarkable. It's amazing, really.
But it's actually quite a lot different from the version I've got.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot taken out and it's reworded. The bit
interesting.
You mentioned, the bit you mentioned about the sexual proclivities is much foreshortened in this version.
Oh, interesting. Now then, that's funny because the one you've got, just hold it up again. The one you've got is the one with the Westland Scout on the cover, isn't it? Which is a shot from the film. Yeah. So the one I've got is a later republication, and on 2 separate occasions, I ordered that version and got sent this version. Because the problem when you order second-hand books is sometimes the images are generic, aren't they? And it does say in the introduction to this, James Follett says in the foreword, he said, "With these thoughts in mind, I carried out a major revision of the Tiptoe Boys to bring it up to date. Motives and villains were changed. Malak the Paymaster and the Real Nasty changed his nationality. The hardware used by the SAS was revamped. Revising the book was like gutting and modernising a period house so that not even the facade remains. And much like the house subjected to such treatment, the result pleased no one, least of all my editor. Her view was that the sweaty pace, the peace riots, the horrifying terrorist violence and general atmosphere of the original version was something that sprang naturally from the political and social turmoil in the early 80s, that it was a book that belonged to that period and should be read as such without changes. I reread both versions and concluded that she was right. Therefore, this book is the original version. I tidied it up a little bit because the first typescript was written in a great hurry to meet the movie tie-in deadlines. The film Who Dares Wins was a great success, as was this book. Unfortunately, I couldn't use the Who Dares Wins title, much as I would have liked to, because Tony Geraghty had already called it for his excellent history of the SAS. So James Follett wrote that forward in 1992. So actually, even though it says he just tidied it up a little bit, there are some substantial differences.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Oh, now I feel like I've lost out for reading a revised version. Oh, well. This is the fucking problem with publication of books, isn't it? And re-edits and edits. Well, I'll be absolutely fascinating to know then how things go a little bit further, because we've had Werner's comeuppance scene, but back at the country house in both film and book, the inciting incident which kicks the SAS into action takes place. Now, in the film, it's a simple case of Robert Webber's general he just looks sort of bored and decides to have a go, doesn't he? He's like, right, I'm going to try and get a weapon from a tired lefty. But in the book, it goes down entirely differently and much more violently. Because in the book, all the hostages have been crowded together in the indoor pool at the house, whilst the captors guard them from above. I mean, I can understand why they didn't do it in the film. Asking aging Richard Widmark and all those old blokes to spend days or weeks in a pool shooting these scenes would have been something of a stretch. But it does make a very, very vivid action scene, though.
Yeah.
Right, okay, we're going to have to check out if this is the same then. So apologies, listeners. You're going to have to listen to some more reading. Right. You will go down in history as a murdering lunatic, said the Secretary of State bitingly. How do you equate killing innocent people with a moral stand against nuclear weapons? Frankie sat down at the edge of the pool with her heels rested on the swimmer's handrail. General Potter sized up a new position and decided it would work to his advantage. It brought a Sterling within grabbing distance that much sooner. He took 2 more imperceptible steps near the blonde girl. That's something to point out, I suppose. In the film, they all use Ingram submachine guns, which look quite cool. They're like small, compact, stub-nosed little things. Yeah. Whereas in the book, they've got knockoff Spanish Sterling submachine guns. To those who don't know what Sterling is, stormtrooper rifle, basically, from Star Wars, without the magazine. But that's what they are. Don't teach me history, said Frankie. If the Allies had stood up to Hitler when he occupied the Rhineland in 1936, people would have been killed, but not that many. There would have been no Second World War. We're standing up to you now in order to avert a Third World War. It's better that a few should die now in order to save the many in the future. General Potter shuffled again. The careful movements took him within 3 metres of Frankie. He felt with the soles of his shoes for an unevenness in the tiles on the bottom of the pool that would prevent him slipping at the fateful moment. Do you include yourself among those few? Harrison Franklin inquired. We're all prepared to die, Frankie said simply. Slowly and silently, General Potter sucked in a deep breath of air. Down, he suddenly yelled, and launched himself at Frankie. As one, everyone in the pool plunged underwater. With superhuman bursts of energy, the detective and the plainclothes marine arrowed under the surface to where the bandsman was standing, the detective heading towards Joe Belchamber at the deep end. General Potter's fingers closed round the barrel of Frankie's submachine gun, and he tried to wrestle it from her. She fought back with savage strength. Joe jumped clear of the edge as the detective surfaced and began hauling himself out of the water by the grab rail. The weight of water in the detective's sodden clothing slowed his movements down. Joe was off balance for a crucial second as he fired. The roar from his Sterling was deafening. The weapon sent rounds stitching across the surface of the water. Then the bullets found their mark. Joe steadied his aim and pumped a sustained burst into the detective's head. The exiting bullets sprayed blood, brains and bones into the water, and the detective's virtually decapitated body fell back into the pool. General Potter seized hold of a handful of Frankie's hair and yanked. She screamed, but clung grimly to her Sterling. A marine surfaced beside General Potter and proceeded to try to break Frankie's hold by banging her fingers on the pool's marble edge. The nearest bandsman aimed his muzzle at the melee, but the tangle of fighting bodies and the screaming of the girls prevented coherent thought. He ran along the edge of the pool, jumping over a hand that reached out to trip him, and pulled Frankie clear. General Potter had hold of a Sterling. He turned it on the bandsman, but the bandsman opened fire first. The rounds hit General Potter in the chest, then moved up to dissolve his face. His hand groped blindly around the Sterling's frame as he fell back. His finger tightened in death spasm on the weapon's trigger, and the spray of fire chewed into the pool's marble surrounds. Ricochets of marble chipping screamed in all directions. One punched a hole in the glass roof, another hit the bandsman in the eye and killed him immediately. He fell into the pool with the blood pumping from his eye socket. Deafened by the firing and the screaming, Frankie jumped into the pool and tore a submachine gun from General Potter's lifeless hands before his body slipped under water. Rod burst through a door with 2 bandsmen and Skellen close behind and saw a marine running along the edge of the pool, coming up behind Belchamber. Joe! Belchamber wheeled around and loosed off a burst into the marine within 2 feet of him. The marine gave a little cry and teetered on his feet for a moment before toppling into the pool. Suddenly the carnage was over except for the hysterical screaming of the terrified women in the reddening pool. There's a little bit, it says Skellen had seen much during his career in the army, but nothing that came near to equaling the grotesque nightmare of the carnage of the swimming pool. Ooh, vicious. Absolutely vicious. I can understand why they didn't film that. It would have been hard to film, quite unpleasant. So yeah, the film a little bit more short and sharp, less over the top and gruesome. But that does trigger the SAS action. And let's talk about the film first. Now, there are moments in movies where my brain nearly explodes with endorphins.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
Yeah.
The Muse scene was one. This is one. And the rocket ship battle in Flash Gordon is probably the other, where I get the most endorphins from a single scene of cinema that I can ever get in my life, you know? I think another one I could probably compare it to, but it's more of a slow release, is if I watch Hair or Car Wash. I get a slow release of endorphins and I can't stop grinning the entire time.
Yeah.
But just in terms of short, sharp injection of pure enjoyment, then this is right up there.
Mm.
This is right up there. Although, when the music kicks in, the two men suspended from the helicopter who fire rockets through the windows and then perfectly go through the windows from the harnesses under the helicopter is one of the most stupid things I think you could ever see in an action film. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Of course, in the book, they're in a big net.
Yeah, I mean...
They're all held under the whole... What's going on here? And they just hoist up.
Yeah.
And they're held... they're 11 men under a helicopter in a massive...
I'll tell you what, let's talk about the film, then talk about the book, because the book is a completely different beast. So you do get this silly thing, and it turns out that the real SAS veterans who appeared in the film in some of these roles, the military advisor thought this was fucking stupid and said, this is fucking stupid. Those guys are sitting targets. Why on earth would you do this? But Ian Sharp was just like, oh, lighten up. It's a film. It looks cool. All right, fair enough. It looks cool. Tell you what else looks cool. Those Westland Scout helicopters, there's something about them. They're only small, but they look kind of like almost like prototypes and sort of unfinished. You know where the engines are under the rotors? They look like they should have some kind of fairing on them, but they don't.
Yeah.
They're awesome. I fucking love them.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, the helicopter scene in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
And you watch that and think, I know which one I prefer. Apocalypse Now, that's great, but try watching helicopter attack with Who Dares Wins. That's where the real action is.
Yeah, I think, Apocalypse Now with Ride of the Valkyrie and all that lot, it's a hugely impressive scene.
Yeah.
And it's good to watch, but I don't know. I don't get the same kick out of it that I do with this.
It's not Roy Budd. Roy Budd is much more exciting than Wagner.
That's right. Yeah, that's probably one of the reviews that annoyed Wagner most.
I don't think that's a controversial opinion.
No, but it's also the review that pissed him off most when someone said, yeah, it's all right this, but he's no Roy Budd. Yeah. So this is an almost 2-hour-long film. It's a slow burn build-up, and then the action at the end is done and dusted in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that, but it is glorious.
Yeah, superb.
It is so good. It's so beautifully shot. It's, the SAS troopers rope down from the helicopters onto the country house. They're all panicking inside the house, saying, oh, what's going on? The helicopter's landed over there. And Skellern's just said, oh, yeah, it's probably just dropping off dignitaries or, MPs or ministers or something like that. Meanwhile, their death is on the roof and about to burst in and brutally kill everybody. You get that brilliant bit where Skellern makes his move with that. He elbows the guy in the face, takes his gun, shoots him, does his little roll, shoots the other guy, then turns round and reshoots the guy who's just shot just to make sure.
Yeah.
You can tell Collins knew what he was doing and could handle guns, because it's very rare you see an actor shoot a blank firing weapon and not blink.
Yeah. But he looks so cool as well. Because he's still wearing his white shirt and his dark trousers.
And he's ripped as well.
Yeah,
isn't he?
he looks
in that
superb.
white shirt. Yeah, he's absolutely fucking ripped. The bit where he gets his hero run down the corridor, flanked by the 4 SAS guys.
I'd say, the greatest scene in film history, I think. Just with the camera rolling backwards and the music booming behind him. I look at that and think, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. It's like 3 seconds of footage that is just... The amount of endorphins that I get from that 3 seconds of celluloid and music
I can't
does
tell you
not
how
make sense.
Many times I've watched that in the last few days. Just watching over and over again on loop. It's just superb.
Yeah, it makes no sense, does it? It makes no sense. And before he actually meets up with the two guys, there's that brilliant bit where he blasts Rod out the window because Rod can see people escaping. He's about to shoot them from above.
Yeah.
And he goes, Rod! And guns him out the window. And then the SAS bursts through, he goes, Skellen! And they say, it's Skellen. He goes, fuck me, lads, it's nice to be recognised. And it's just like his pronunciation, his diction, fuck me, it's so northern. Fuck me, lads, it's good to be recognised.
It's
but
then he takes control and he leads them.
Yeah. Has anybody seen the girl? No. Right, with me. And then he gets his hero run down the corridor, kicks a couple of doors down, and then the door opens behind him. She's got him banged to rights, Frankie. But at this point, she still doesn't know. And she has that pause, that moment. It's like, is he on my side? He doesn't react, and it's just enough for the other SAS captain guy to just step in and blast her through that fucking door. And it's one of two bits where they use those stuntman pull harnesses.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. The first one is poor Jock from Porridge. where Skeller's going down the corridor and he goes, what's going on? Where's Tony? And he just turns around and just blasts him through that door. And then there's this bit where she gets pulled back through that door with fucking hair. Just go, absolutely incredible. He has that momentary pause, and the guy says, slowing down, Peter. Come on, man, move your ass. It's fucking incredible. Absolutely incredible. And then, of course, you get that wonderful happy ending. He goes up, he meets Hagen and the German guy, and says, sorry about the nose. Oh, sorry about the entire body, and the fly-off music.
Yeah.
And then you get the hard cut to the coda with the peer and the financier. But before we get onto that, the novel. So Hagen being the sole foreign special forces guy in the book, and we've talked about how they're made to look, maybe inept is too strong, but not quite up to scratch and a little bit sort of hapless. In the book is an entirely different deal. And he effectively blackmails the SAS leadership in allowing him to participate in the raid. Because he's saying, this is all American staff, American politicians, the Secretary of State, American generals. If this goes wrong, how bad is it going to look? If you've got me on board, well, you've got something of a mea culpa, so they go, okay, that's fine. But the biggest difference in the book is there's a failed ground assault in the book that leaves that leaves an SAS squad pretty much massacred.
Yeah.
Well, that wouldn't have worked in this film, would it?
No.
This jingoistic Daily Mail wet dream of a film.
Yeah.
So I was really shocked by it because it's really brutal. And in the book, what it sets up is that they've set up cameras with night vision everywhere on all sides, and they've planted grenades in the lawn with pull cords. So they see when the SAS men come in by ground, they pull the cords, they blow some of them up. Yeah. One poor SAS guy makes it to the window, gets through the window, and they all and runs into piled up furniture and just gets gunned down in the window. It's really, really brutal. And it gets even more brutal because the result is they drag the ambassador to the phone, get our heroes on the line. There is no Commander Powell at this point, like there is in the film. Edward Woodward isn't involved. They're talking directly to the SAS commander. Yeah. And they get him on the phone. They shoot the ambassador in the balls and let him scream down the phone for a bit and then execute him. And it's like, holy shit, this is really fucking hardcore. So not only has the SAS raid gone horrifically wrong, and 7 of them have died, and 2 of them are horrifically injured, and then Hagen is the guy who goes over the wall with another SAS soldier to drag the 2 wounded soldiers back. So a massive difference between Hagen in the film and Hagen in the book. And then, you're right, you get this bit where Hagen leads this audacious assault by helicopter, but it's a bit weird because it involves a squad of troopers getting into a big net and being carried by a Sea King helicopter and lowered onto the roof of the house. And then they quietly break in from above by going through the tiles. It's like, well, don't Sea King helicopters make like a massive fucking noise?
Yes.
I got really confused by this in the book. It's the one point in the book where I thought, the book hasn't quite shit the bed here, but I'm not sure I can get with this final raid at the end, because how the fuck don't they hear the Sea King dropping these soldiers off on the roof?
Yeah.
Don't make any sense. But one of the SAS soldiers does ask Hagen at one point, says, "Is this something that you've done before?" And he says, "Yeah, we did it in Vietnam." They said, "Did it work?" He said, "No." He said, "No, it didn't work." So the SAS soldiers are all like, oh, bloody hell.
Great, yeah.
But it works in this case. But in the book, the end with Frankie is different as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Says, in the dining room, Clegg bellowed, "Where the fucking hell's the girl?" He leapt across the room, saw the gap between the table sections of the wall, and tore the barricade down. The dead soldier was still draped over the windowsill, and Clegg had seen him on the television screen in the mobile command centre. The window had been blown, making escape for the girl easy. Clegg swore, but he didn't give chase. It would have been contrary to his orders. Another body was held out of the front door for Dowsett to force to lie face down on the gravel. Skellen staggered to his feet. At this point, Skellen hasn't done anything of note. Skellen's been a passenger throughout this raid at this point. He doesn't get a heroic moment in the book, really, in the country house. He says, "Stay down, Peter," said Dowsett. "You'll feel better in a minute." "Browning," croaked Skellen. "Lie down, sir." "You're Browning, Dowsett," snapped Skellen. "Now." Dowsett gave Skellen a pistol and watched him stagger round to the rear of the house. Skellen stumbled across the lawn, moving in the direction he'd seen Frankie take on the monitor screen. The cool night air helped him clear his head and eyes, and he realised it was beginning to get light. He moved silently among shrubs, then heard a desperately smothered cough. He moved silently again, circling round towards the house. Frankie was huddled under a bush, holding a handkerchief to her face. She had a starling across her knees. "Hi," said Skellen casually, holding the Browning down at his side. She looked up sharply. The fear in her eyes faded when she saw who he was. "Thank God you got away too. What are our chances of escaping from here?" Skellen stared down at her. She really was an extraordinarily beautiful girl, but it was a terrible ugliness that Skellen saw. The ugliness of the soldiers who had been killed, the cold-blooded way she had murdered the WAF girl on the coach, the telephone she had held out to a dying man. He raised the Browning and fired. For a long time afterwards he was going to remember the look on her face, an almost reproachful look, as if she couldn't quite believe that he would do this to her. A stricken look. He had done her one final kindness. He had fired so that the bullet would kill instantly. Perhaps he felt he owed her that at least. She lay sprawled at his feet, but he felt no pride, no satisfaction in a job well done. As he walked back to the house, it started to rain, but he didn't feel it. He passed a dead SAS man lying on the lawn near one of the grenade craters, but he didn't see him. The sickness in his stomach was not caused by the acrid burning aftertaste of the gas. Yeah, not quite as rousing a climax as the film. Oh, yeah. So in the book, Skellen, really, other than managing to get a coded message out to the command centre, doesn't actually get anything really heroic to do. And his final act, his only act with a gun, is to find her in the garden and execute her in cold blood. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Interesting book. Actually, a decent read, to be honest. A good thriller. A good thriller.
Yeah.
But probably, I think I probably would consider the book to be a little bit more unforgivably right-wing than the film. I can forgive the film because of the cheeseball quotient, the music, the performances. It's a slow burn thriller with those wonderful bits of action because, and I think it's one of those things that's rare these days. As far as I'm concerned, you can take your 3-hour John Wick 3 and fuck off. All of these like 25-minute long gunfights and 15-minute long fights on stairs and CGI blown out car chases. No, it does nothing for me. A slow burn thriller with a 5-minute burst of action at the end.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy with,
Yeah.
More than happy with. Yeah. But that coda, before we get to the coda, the other thing that happens at the end of the book, he reunites with his wife and she leaves him. He reunites with his wife and she says, "You know what, this is bollocks. We're going. Bye."
Yeah.
Which I think is probably fair enough.
Yeah.
But the coda, film and book, is quite similar. So you've got this meeting, appear in the film, an MP in the book, and Malik schmooze before Malik returns to Libya. So although this is a pretty right-wing film, the film is a little bit more ambiguous because it's a peer. It's Sir Richard, played by Paul Freeman, of course, Belloc in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Tiny role at the end. where they stroll arm in arm through Whitehall, and they say, "Oh well, this was a shame, but it caused a stir. There'll be other opportunities, and it's radicals and revolutionaries taking over embassies. They're all misguided people, but you know what? We got what we needed out of it. We raised awareness of the issues, and there's plenty of time to pursue our agendas further down the line." So the film gives you this idea that financiers and big money are in bed with both sides. They're in bed with the terrorists, they're in bed with the revolutionaries, they're in bed with the radicals, but they're also in bed with the governments because money talks, right? The book, slightly less ambiguous in that in the book it's an MP, and the MP is definitely coded to be a Labour George Galloway type in the book, because he's talking about admiring the workers' approach to control of Malek's country and government, and the visit that the general has organised, and he expresses admiration for how the media is controlled by the workers, which is coded just mean by the revolutionary party of this country, which is really just a military autocracy. So yeah, it's coded much more as a Labour, but nevertheless, you can't let the film off the hook, because after that bit, it also shows a lot of statistics about radicals and revolutionaries taking over embassies, all to the strains of the Red Flag, the anthem of the Labour Party, which is something I didn't pick up on at all when I watched this when I was younger. It's only the last couple of times I've seen this where I thought, hang on a minute, the musical choice was the Red Flag. Yeah, okay. So but that was Who Dares Wins. That was Who Dares Wins, and that was the Tiptoe Boys, the James Follett novelisation of the George Mark Steen original script. What do you reckon?
I loved reading the book. The first thing I noticed was I looked at page 1, and then on page 2, it was chapter 2. I thought, this is great. This is going to be such an easy read.
Yeah.
You dip in, it veers, loads of characters in there, but it just rips along, and you do get a good sense of the period of the time, the politics of the time, whatever way it's slanted. It's a fantastic read, and then you watch the film. It's elevated by the cast. It's elevated by Lewis Collins. It's got some fabulous moments. I'd recommend either or both. Watch one, read the other in conjunction, and they are just both really, really good things. And Who Dares Wins. As a kid, if I'd looked back on it, and I'd have thought, he was a bit of a jingoistic thing.
Yeah,
but actually, it's a better film than that.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of things that. The acting's good, the excitement's good, the scenes are good, the music is superb, and it's a brilliant action thriller.
Yeah, the music is superb throughout, and I'm going to argue that Right on Time is also superb.
Oh, I won't say I don't love
it. You came right on time. Yeah. You know it is. James Follett, interestingly, is Ken Follett's brother. Ken Pillars of the Earth Follett. So this is James Follett, his brother. It was a little bit more kind of thriller focused. So there's some adverts in the back of this for some more James Follett. Swift, about a mobster boss with millions at his disposal, assisted by a Soviet task correspondent with his own motive to pursue, and a brilliant but psychotic computer program. We've got what is it? I think that was a financial thriller. We've got Dominator, high above the Earth's surface orbit. It's one of NASA's latest space shuttles, Dominator, but the crew and cargo on board are beyond the control of the US Space Agency. It's been hijacked, and a nightmare is about to begin. Oh my God. It's got Middle Eastern factions and all sorts of stuff. Then there's Churchill's Gold, a World War II thriller. About £42 million worth of gold in a bank vault in Pretoria, and only one man can bring that gold to Britain. Robert Garrard, captain of the Tulsar, but lying in wait to intercept him is Germany's newest submarine, U-330, captained by Kurt Milland, a pre-war colleague of Garrard's, handpicked to predict his every move. I like the sound of that one. Might get that one.
Yeah.
Churchill's Gold. Yeah.
In the back of mine, there are adverts, little forwards to Dogs of War.
Oh, nice.
Frederick Forsyth. Devil's Alternative, Frederick Forsyth.
Yeah.
And The Wild Geese, Daniel Carney.
Oh.
And then...
I've got the Wild Geese novel up here. Yeah.
Yeah. And then selected list of corgi titles, most of which are Sven Hassel.
Of course they are. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Daniel Carney, The Wild Geese.
Yeah, yeah.
I had no idea that The Wild Geese was based on a novel. So this isn't a novelisation. The Wild Geese was the film of the novel, apparently.
Right.
Yeah. So there's one to consider, maybe, for some point in the future, because I've got to say, Wild Geese. Oh, yeah, give me some of that Wild Geese action. Well, it turns out that this film was hugely successful, but it did attract a lot of controversy, particularly from the likes of CND. There were demonstrations outside of cinemas in London, apparently, and it didn't help when Ronald Reagan said it was one of his favourite films. So, according to Ewan Lloyd, and he talks about this on the DVD commentary, the White House called him. One of Reagan's advisors, a guy called Morgan Mason, rang Ewan Lloyd personally to get a print of the film because it hadn't been distributed in America yet. So Lloyd went, "Yeah, I'll bring you one." So he flew a print over via Concorde.
God.
And gentleman producers, man. This is what you could do when you're a fucking gentleman producer. So he flew it over. Reagan watched it at Camp David, and a couple of days later, Mason met Lloyd and gave him Reagan's effusive feedback that it was the best film ever made that tackled the theme of terrorism. Yeah. So Lloyd used that in the film as promotional material and communicated that to things like Variety. And according to Lloyd, this didn't do it any favours whatsoever in Hollywood in terms of distribution, because it instantly got tagged a Reagan film. And according to him, Hollywood was left-leaning, so it killed its chances in America. Now, we could maybe take that with a pinch of salt. I don't know. Maybe it was just too jingoistically and unapologetically British. Or maybe if the Hagen of the book had been in the film rather than film Hagen, maybe it might have done better in the US in terms of getting distribution. I don't know. But it was eventually distributed on TV under the title The Final Option. Did great on HBO. And I think, in defence of the film, other than it being a yarn that I just can't help but love for nostalgic reasons, you do get those moments where it makes some very occasional concessions. Like where Iwa takes great pains to add dialogue that expresses how it's just a minority of leftists that are dangerous radicals, rather than all of them. Most of them are just like, well-intentioned people. And but Ewan Lloyd really didn't help, because in numerous interviews in the 80s, when he was responding to stuff about the protests against it, he said his attitude to the left was they were all Moscow-funded revolutionaries. It was a proper old Tory. And sadly, it didn't launch the career of Lewis Collins into the stratosphere either, which is a shame.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, he wound up in Panto.
Yeah, you sent me those two Panto photos.
Yeah, and Edward Woodward. And I was looking back at that and thinking, what other avenue did people have? If Lewis Collins couldn't get into TV, and I imagine he would have had a future in TV, but he thought, I'll branch out into film. But if you don't do that, where do you go? Now, actors of a certain age, nowadays they can go into soap operas and so on, or do those celebrity reality TV things.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, the avenue was often theatre. Now, I don't suppose Lewis Collins was a theatre actor.
No.
But they did pantomime, and he ended up in pantomimes touring the country as the character, Dandini, who I think is the prince in Cinderella.
Yeah.
And you think, well, that's not really the outcome he'd look for. And he was doing that in the early 80s. So it was a year after finishing in the professionals, he was doing pantomime. Well,
I just can't help but feel that Lewis Collins deserved better than a Joe Pasquale type career in pantomimes,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he had a handful of roles here and there. I think probably the one that I remember most is that, was it 2 or 3 part prestige TV film, Jack the Ripper, with Michael Caine?
Yeah,
Caine played Aberline and Lewis Collins played his sergeant.
Yeah.
And then, he did the odd thing. He turned up in the Grimleys once in a cameo.
Yeah.
As the PE teacher's dad. And then the offers dried up. He left acting altogether in the early 2000s, set up a computer sales business in California, and died of cancer in 2013.
Yeah, it's sad. Cause,
one of the great what-ifs of the British arts scene.
Yeah, and Lewis Collins was a household name in the 80s. People knew who he was, people knew what he did, and most people liked him.
Yeah.
Blokes liked him because they wanted to be like him.
Yeah.
And women liked him. I remember, because I haven't told you this before, but my wife Melanie was in Panto.
Yeah. No way.
in Cinderella with Lewis Collins.
No way.
So I'll dig it out, but there's a picture of her sitting on Lewis Collins' knee with all her hair in curlers because she was in this dance troupe in the 80s. So they were doing panto, and he was playing Dandini in Cinderella, and I think there was Paul Squire who was on that poster playing buttons.
Yeah.
Cloda Rogers as Cinderella.
Cloda Rogers.
And so all the girls' mums, they used to drive the girls into ballet, or if they're doing a panto, they drive them up there, drop them off, pick them up afterwards. When Lewis Collins is in panto, all the mums were turning up and coming in and trying to get backstage. And say, is there anything I can do? Oh, hello, Mr. Collins. Oh, hi. Can you sign this? Can I sit on your knee, Mr. Collins? So they absolutely loved him, all these mums. And all the blokes would be like, oh, yeah, but he's a great, he's an SAS man.
Yeah.
He's a really tough guy. So they loved him as well.
Yeah.
But he was a really popular guy. But it's not really what he should be doing. What should have been perhaps, the peak or moving towards the later end of his career. Because you're not going to do it. Because he'd moved into a more senior role.
Yeah.
But, doing panto is, I suppose it kept the wolf from the door. But
yeah,
that's what he should be doing.
Yeah, doing panto and Colonel Mustard on a TV series of Cluedo. Yeah. It just seems like a major disappointment for certainly for how he exists in my brain. As that kind of guy, which is why I will for all of their faults, I will always love those three Antonio Margheriti mercenary movies that he did.
At least
at least he got to mix it with Klaus Kinski, Borgnine, and who else is in those films? Oh, bloody hell.
Lee Van Cleef.
Lee Van Cleef, yeah. So Lee Van Cleef's in one of them as a helicopter pilot. Klaus Kinski's the villain in, I think, two of them. Ernest Borgnine's in one of them. And then a who's who rogues gallery of Italian, mostly sort of horror and action actors from various Lucio Fulci and Giallo films. Yeah, they're a guilty pleasure, those movies. They're not good films, but Lewis Collins is sweating in the Filipino jungle where they're making them, and he still looks fucking brilliant. Still looks and sounds fantastic. Yeah. Well, you know what, John? It was lovely talking about the Tiptoe Boys and Who Dares Wins and reminiscing of Lewis Collins.
I could have talked about this for 20 hours. We've been going for 50 minutes. We haven't even mentioned. I thought, this isn't really. We perhaps ought to cut it in, but I thought I really want to talk about this because I loved reading it, loved watching the film, and I couldn't wait to get into it.
Yeah. Well, this might be one of the longest podcasts we've done in quite a while because we're up to 2 hours, 13 minutes and we could probably still carry on. Yeah. You know what? Yeah. The great thing about the Arrow Blu-ray of Who Dares Wins is one of them, I think is it The Commander, is on there as an extra. Just as an extra feature. So there's a whole Lewis Collins, Antonio Margheriti Italian mercenary film just on there as an extra. And I think one of the other ones is Codename Wild Geese is an extra on the Wild Geese Blu-ray, the Arrow Wild Geese Blu-ray as well. But the annoying thing, though, about the Who Dares Wins Blu-ray is it went funky halfway through. And I had to buy it last night on Prime to finish watching it, which is quite annoying. So, but whoever owns the rights to Who Dares Wins, they got $7.99 out of me. What can you do? But yeah, fucking hell, I could do a whole podcast on them three films, frankly.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I'm sure there are other podcasts out there like Fighting on Film who've probably done loads and loads and loads of these films. So yeah, we won't do it. Well, John, it's been a pleasure as always. I really wish I'd brought another can of Imto up because the Absinto Flashbang is a fucking triumph of a cocktail. So magnificent.
Next time we meet up in a pub, we'll go in and get someone to serve us that.
What? Don't you know what an Absinto Flashbang is? You call yourself a mixologist?
Come on, man.
Fuck you. All right, John.
Catch you later.
Many thanks to John for coming back to talk about the Tiptoe Boys and Who Dares Wins. Since recording this, I found the ads for the Nissan Almera on YouTube. I'll put the link in the show notes. I also received a Kickstarter delivery in the gap between recording and editing this, I've been following the work of Trystan Mitchell and his Bigfoot Studio. I backed his Cornish Ghost Tales comic, The Ancow's Bane, and also grabbed his culinary Cornish folk horror, The Wicker Pasty. And I ordered 2 of each, so I could send the spares on to a couple of patron demons. So watch your letterboxes. Trystan sent me a lovely card with my delivery and a message saying that he listens to Breakfast in the Ruins while working on his illustrations, and that made me very happy indeed. Check out his work at thebigfootstudio.com, and I'll pop that link in the show notes too. But this has been going on for quite a while now. We're well over 2-hour mark, so in the meantime I'll just take time to thank our patrons. First, those without tier: Anthony Piconti, Tim Cardos, Dave Dempster and Sebastian Weetabix. And our Chaos Engineers: Ed Von Stout, Andrew Clark, Andrew Cicluna, Andrew Spong, Andrew Van Ness, all the Andrews there, Anthony Porter, Ben Fletcher, Ben Hagar, Brandon Mays, Dan Charnley, Dave Griffiths, Dave Voxman, Gabriel Laycock, Harvey Faulkner Aston, Jim Kirkland, Jim Jupp, John W. Lays, Jules Lawrence, Mal Pertwee, Matt Saltz, Michael Hopwood, Nick Hopkinson, Paul McRandall, PJ Cooper, Scott Butler and Simon Perrins. And our crafty jugaderos: Adrian Tchaikovsky, Alexander Harris, Chris Sharp, Christian Hundal, Dave F., Graham Holden, Kevin Williams, Liam Turner, Loz, Mark Buckley, Mark Taylor, Matthew Broom, Murray Palmer, Urfa Ziv, Sean Twist, Toby White and Taylor Lavery. An eternal thanks to our patron demons: Action Edmonds, Alistair Davison, Andy Darby, Brian Henderson, David Lee, Derek Clunan, Fred Quiche, Gareth Wilson, Glenn Sawyer, Greg Faulkner, Gwen Barlow, Ian Stead, Jenny Stim, Jason Vogel, Joachim Sund, Joe Monty, Johan Hjarper, Jonathan Sharp, Lee Gary, Liam Jones, Marius Latauskas, Mark Hebden, Miles Reed-Labato, Neil Burton, Paul Hillary, Randall Gatlin, Steve Round, Tom Murphy, Tony Malazzo, the OG patron Norman Beresford, and last but never least, Robert McMillan. Okay, that's enough from me. Don't forget you can follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky with the handle @BreakfastRuins. You can email us at breakfastruins@outlook.com. The webpage is breakfastintheruins.com. We have our Patreon page too, of course, and there are a few extra odds and sods on there. But until next time, wherever you are in the world and whatever's going on in your turf, take care, stay safe, and we will meet again soon on the Moonbeam Roads.